shoot. No! No, I'm the murder doer, exactly. Oh no! Oh fuck! Oh my god!
Jesus Christ.
Shit!
My slimes.
Hello, Willie. Oh, love to meet a nice Willie in the pub. You want information on Gorodisha? Do I? Cheers. Eh. Not up. There was like a sudden kick. It was like it kicked me in the tonsils. Is there something wrong with that hole? Die! Die! God damn it!
There's nothing wrong with this Hulk, Jamie. There's nothing wrong with this Hulk at all.
End the night with the overriding taste of me in your mouth. Hello everybody, we're live. Sorry, I didn't notice the countdown had run out, and it's not an automatic thing where it just goes away.
What did you call me last time?
I don't know.
It's in the document.
Is it? Do you keep track of it now?
I might have done.
I don't think you do. I don't think you save them.
Not always, no, but I think I wrote it in the podcast names at the bottom. Podcast names ideas.
Oh.
Because when I'm editing,
Over.
I sit there and every time I hear something I think could be funny. So always.
Well, the podcast title ideas are Give That Man a Cactar, Big Bucket of Memories, and Funnier Than It Should Be.
Funner than it should be. Okay, I guess I didn't.
Big Bucket of Memories is a good one. Which slurs did Jamie use last time? No slurs, not at all. Also, last time I used one recommended to me by Twitch chat from the month before. So it's your fault, not mine.
I think it was one I had. Oh, it was Teletubbies. It was Teletubbies. Something.
Ah, yes. All right, I'll remove that from this list. I should remove them when
Because I remember I was bad at improving with it, and now I know why. It was fucking Teletubbies. Oh shit! Let's start recording.
Oh yeah, that's how this works.
Remember how we turned this into a podcast?
You know, I was about to say we do this once a month, so that's our excuse for not remembering how everything goes. But recently, we haven't been doing it once a month. It's been less than that. We did one, then 2 weeks later we did another one, and now 3 weeks later we're doing another one. Right.
Yeah, but it is still once a month. You know, it averages out, right?
Also, hello, Steltec and Koto. Yeah, it does average out to about a month. But if we're going to forget how this works, now would not be the time to do it, considering we've had so many recently. Can you hear us well, by the way? Can you hear both of us? Hopefully you can hear us chatting away.
Oh no, it's doing that thing where it makes me hear myself. Okay, it stopped making me hear myself. That's fine.
Thank you for saying so, Koto. And might I say you're looking very audible today too.
Why is this waveform so weird?
Why is this waveform so weird?
Yeah, Reaper's picking up my mic in like a very funny way, and I don't really like it.
Well, at least one of us will be funny then, won't we?
Wow.
I think that might be a cell phone.
I mean, yeah, it's no confidence in yourself, but it's no confidence in us.
Hello, Mary. You can't hear us super clearly, but because we're on the telly in the lounge in the kitchen, and you're in the kitchen cooking sausages for tea. What I want is our podcast to be audible, no matter how many walls you listen to it through. Can we do that, Jonas? Can you figure out some way of making the audio podcast audible, no matter how many walls?
Yeah, we hijack British broadcasting, and we broadcast to all speakers, houses, phones, devices, microwaves.
What I want is, if anyone's listening to the podcast at any time, anyone within 100-meter radius can hear it perfectly. But as soon as you step out of that radius, you can't hear it at all.
Why that? Why is that?
I feel like
The feature.
I feel like it would get the word out because more people would hear it, but also no one gets a substandard experience of being just on the edge.
I see. I see. You want to eliminate like I don't know. It's all or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You get the whole experience or nothing. I guess it
But
would be a
why?
bit of a shame if someone was walking around with it and someone kept sort of like dipping in and out of the edge of it. You just get little bits, but that's a sacrifice I'm
Why?
willing to make.
Why offer the nothing option at all? Why not just everyone gets to hear this clearly?
Because sometimes I'd like to not listen to it.
Oh, okay. I mean, when you put it like that, if
I'd
you
like the
can't put up with
option.
the podcast 24/7, then yeah, who are
Yeah,
we to force it on other people?
I'd like the option to not listen to it.
All
um,
right. I'll work on it. Is all I'll say.
can you give me a time frame, just a rough estimate?
Okay. Um, how about as long as it takes us to do the 24-hour podcast
Are you going to
from the
announce it?
point from the point of its announcement, yeah, give or take 30 years.
Okay, all right. I tell you what. During the 24-hour podcast, you can announce how far you've come.
Yeah, I will. I
You
will.
can show us a prototype.
Yeah, I'll be able to talk to everyone about our findings thus
Very
far.
heavily in the research and development phase, with emphasis on the research part. um,
Um, uh, maybe still even in the kind of like conceptualizing phase.
what is this idea?
Like, when I do the research, what will the research look like?
Yeah,
Forgotten
the
the
24-hour
24-hour podcast.
podcast is a thing. Yeah,
It's not a thing. It's not a
it,
thing.
it is a thing. It is a
It made
thing.
it up. A
It is a
myth.
thing. It's gonna happen. There's a reason why I think it still comes up when you click on the when you click on the Bunyip bugs, it still comes up as we've raised 100% of the things. It's gonna happen, and then when it's done, we're gonna have a whole new community goal.
Treat it like a video game announcement that you really like don't want it to go wrong. Just pretend it doesn't exist
Exactly.
until it exists and then judge it on its own merits, right?
Exactly.
Like don't look forward to it for 5 years only to be let down by the eventual product.
So the current plan is we're taking December off. We're going to get the setup done in December. Maybe do a test run, like not an actual 24-hour podcast, but like maybe a very short stream potentially in December just to see if it's feasible. And then um and then and then in the new year I will start putting around the word for people to be involved, and we will work out a time in like March or something to do it. That's the vague plan. You look so confused.
Um I'm mostly just playing around with my microphone. Also, it was just the way you started that with we are taking a break in December. We will be sorting out the physical
By
setup.
we, I mean I absolutely do not run this channel on my own. And but I am very aware that when I take a break from this channel, it means that um, at least 4 other people also need to take a break from streaming for that month. so I refer to us as we. This was the thing that we will start the podcast in a minute. This was the thing we had last year when we took December off, and Maddie and Sylvan and Laura and also Luke and Beth, they were all like, "Oh, well, are we still going to play games in the week?" And I said, "Yeah, we can do. It's just sort of the point of it is to have a bit of time to work on stuff, but we can organise, like just extra, just non-stream, just playing of games." And we did that maybe once or twice throughout the month, and it was really weird. It was super low energy. Everyone was sort of like, I don't know if I want to play or whatever. And we realized that the thing that actually gets us to play games together is the streaming part of
Is the
it.
streaming, yeah.
And that everyone forgets they're streaming when they're streaming, but there are defined hours that they play the game and they feel
Yeah.
that commitment to doing that. And as soon as you take that away, everything falls apart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of like that's why I liked having a stream schedule, because like I was forced to play the games that I probably wasn't just going to play in my free time during those hours. Like, it's a very good way to kind of self motivate and forces kind of forces engagements. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Interactions.
Yeah, and it's
Um
really good for that. It's really good for getting us to do stuff. The big problem with it is it takes up all of the time I would be doing anything else, right? Like
yeah.
it takes up Tuesdays to Thursdays every week. Like, Mondays I'm working in the office, I come home exhausted. Fridays, I spend time with Laura, and every weekend throughout the summer we've been doing stuff. So when we want to do stuff like home for a 24-hour podcast, or my other project that I'll be looking at over December, which is preparing for the next season of Head to Head, we will, like, I don't know where that comes in, so that's why we need to take a month off, but we will do that.
You, me, head to head.
I
We haven't
know.
head to head this year.
No, we
That's
haven't.
such a
No,
long time.
but I have a plan for the new one. Because the new one's going to be half viewer suggested challenges and half us suggested challenges.
All anime fighting games.
Well, this is the thing. In the new one,
all,
you only get to suggest one game a week rather than two.
all. Jamie, everything you just said, just get rid of it. All anime fighting games.
Oh God, I'm imagining that we're going to get some really horrible things suggested to us as challenges. My
So right,
plan
you'll
is
have that new Hitman mode, so you can beat the shit out of me on that.
oh yeah, do something with freelancer mode.
It's still called Hitman 3 though, so I can judge that we've done it before.
We haven't played Hitman 3.
Oh, haven't we played
No,
Hitman 2?
we played Hitman 2.
It's
That's a
close
different
enough.
game. Yeah, Mr. Take me through every bloody fighting game that's all basically the same. Like,
Hey, you banned me from picking fighting games of the same franchise, because
I'm not sure
if
I
I did,
did. I'm not sure I
Mm.
did. I no, the ban was on having more than one fighting game in a session.
Okay, well, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing that anyway.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a week that you did do that.
Nah. I think I chose a rhythm game and a fighting game.
Oh God, yeah. Well, anyway, the
Play to my strengths.
yeah. So anyway, the next head to head. This is not what this podcast is about. It's not about just future plans I have. But the next season of head to head will be half viewer suggestions and half our suggestions. So
I just realized the fucking time. It's 20 past 8.
I know,
We could
we've
have
got to
done.
get going.
We
All
could
right.
have. We could have done half the podcast by now.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have done. All right.
No, when you put it like that.
Okay. Do you want to sync?
Yep. Let's just getting the card ready because it's got my numbers on it.
What?
Jamie, we're gonna. You know how I have to say 3, 2, 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And do you remember the first 3 times we did this? We didn't do it the same way every time,
Yeah.
and you got annoyed at the inconsistency.
Yeah.
So I wrote down 3, 2, 1 and
Ah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Wow.
to ensure that I would always use the exact same
Okay.
method every single time.
I'm on board.
And it's
with
written
this.
in front of me, and it has
Yes.
been every single podcast ever since.
See, there's the hidden depths to Jonas's. What you don't know is that we rehearse every podcast the day before, so this is all scripted. We've done all this. We've really gone through this.
I volunteer 15 hours a week towards this podcast. I don't know if you guys realize that.
Yeah.
So, you're
I
welcome.
volunteer 15 hours a day.
Just thinking about that, and I'm like, no, you fucking. Okay. So it's going to be 3, 2, 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Okay.
And if you can do a clap or a click as you go, that will help me a lot.
Okay.
So it's going to be 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5.
Many thanks.
Hooray! All right, let's go. Hello and welcome to this month's edition of the Bunyip Review. I am your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis, and I am here with my co-host, Jonas Top Twitcher Garway. How are you doing, Jonas?
Guys, I'm really happy to be here, and it's such a joy to have surpassed all the other Twitchers. They're all beneath me now. I'm the top Twitcher, number one. I plan to be here for at least 3 hours. We'll see how the scalings shake out once I've done the furry 3D hentai castle on Steam, which I'll be streaming in 25 minutes.
How did you enjoy TwitchCon, Jonas? I heard that you broke all of your bones jumping into a foam pit?
Yeah, well, that was all of obviously that's what helped boost me to number one. Um uh live streaming 7 of my vertebrae shattering into 7 pieces really did boost my viewer count.
I
Um
heard that you got 30,000 subs for every bone that you broke. Um,
Well, and the support that has rallied around me has just been truly, truly supreme. Firstly, I just need to address the allegation that I used a body double for that particular sequence. As you can see, I am still in the wheelchair. And very much still on the path of recovery. I did go through what I went through, and I will not be accepting any further questions on this particular topic at this time. Thank you.
it's particularly impressive that you're able to, have interviews with the media, considering that your jaw was one of the bones that was broken. And if I remember rightly, smashed to powder was the term that the Twitch doctors used.
Well, the good friends over at Streamlabs have of course sponsored me a Streamlabs jaw. Hashtag thanks to the guys over at Streamlabs, and thank you Shadow Raid Legends for also providing me with a spare kidney.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, I'm glad you got your jaw back. That's their premium model. They also do a standard model of streamer jaw for people who have worn out their jaw from too much talking on stream. It's important stuff.
It's
You
an
can get it branded with like the Diva logo, can't you?
It's an epidemic. Yeah, and I've actually also installed 7 new hotkeys just that I can just activate by clicking my jar in various ways. Look, we're just going to go to overlay 2 now. Right, there we are.
Oh God. All right. Well, let's move on to the rewind section from the whatever the fuck that section was. Jonas, you've been watching House of the Dragon Hot D on my recommendation. How are you finding it?
Yeah, so I finished it.
Excellent. What do you think?
I finished season 1. Yeah, I found myself really enjoying it. I found myself really drawn back into the intrigue and the kind of, the political spectacle of the show.
Do you agree
Um,
with my assessment that it's back to what made Game of Thrones good?
I do agree with that. Yeah, I think it definitely has a lot of the strengths of Game of Thrones. It is also very much its own. I think it is really its own show, though. At
Absolutely,
least
yeah.
season 1 definitely tells its own story. Very like, it knows precisely where it wants to end up, and it kind of everything is in service of that end point. One of my favorite things I messaged you was just like, "Hey, Jamie, everyone seems like they're really happy and having a nice time. This is fucking terrible. Like, oh God, what's about to go wrong? I am so stressed by how nice the situation is right now."
I think it does a good job of it knows that its viewers are going to be coming from Game of Thrones, right? And so it has a nice mix of absolutely playing up to people's expectations, but also playing on people's expectations. There's scenes
Yeah.
that feel very uncomfortable, partially because they have just been filmed and written so well, but also partially because you're coming at it from the side of going, I kind of know what this world is like what could happen in this scene, and it's making me horribly uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, there was, I just yeah, I think about like a lot of those kind of strong moments where I was forced to stop watching and message you, and I think like we were talking about those like glory days of Game of Thrones where people kind of actually got together and chatted about those kind of like those big moments that really wowed and impressed, and you felt like you had to kind of just get a second take on that moment, just so that you knew that you weren't alone in kind of your own personal reverence of what you'd seen. And
And
yeah, House of Dragon just had a lot of moments like that.
it's funny though. I had exactly the experience I talked about on the podcast, which was because I'd seen them all and I had finished them a little bit before you had even started it. There were points where you'd message me something, and the show does a really good job of sort of the end mirroring the beginning, and sort of like it's about the passage of time and how people grow up to be or to diverge away from their families and things. So there's moments where you would say, "Oh, this like oh, it's so cool that this happened," and I would be thinking, I don't know what I can actually talk about because I don't know where you are, because that could be towards the end or it could be in the middle or that could be kind of thing. And it was exactly what I was talking about of like um when everyone's watching it together, everyone's talking about the thing everyone just saw, right? We're all in the same experience rather than this thing of me, like some of us being like well in the future, some of us being right at the start, coming into a room and sort of being like, well, we can't talk about this because half the people here are nowhere near this point we're at. So what I really hope is that when next season comes out, people will be watching it and we will be going through it, because it'd be really nice to come back again to that sort of feeling of event TV.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think yeah, next time when the next season drops, I'm going to try and be there, kind of at the front door, enjoying it on the week to week basis. I very much enjoyed it. I've recommended it to a number of other people on a similar basis, just so that I can kind of, you recommended it to me, and I used you as a sounding board for everything I saw, and now I want someone else to kind of do that for me, and then they do it for someone else, and the torch gets passed along.
There is a certain sort of like joy in, yeah, I know this goes basically against what I just said, but there's a certain joy in you being like, that's really fucked up, and I'm like, is it now? Just you wait.
Oh, um, yeah, what was it? We just literally have a Koto in chat, kind of saying hypothetically, me saying to you, "Oh, there's quite a lot of incest in this episode," and you responding, "Do you have the slightest idea of how little that narrows it down?" Koto, you do not know how nearly on the ball you are with that statement.
That could actually be something Jonas said to me directly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I basically alluded to bad incest on like 5 separate occasions to you.
Yeah, but that
As opposed to good incest? Oh god, no.
I think one of the interesting things about the show as well is, having the background of watching Game of Thrones. I spent the early on time like trying to really pinpoint, oh, where is this in that larger world? And I would say if you're going into that, if you're going into it, don't bother doing that. Just take it as it comes and immerse yourself in this version of the world, and I think you'll have a better time. I looked up a Targaryen family tree early on, and the amount of incest that makes it basically impossible to read that family tree. The family trees are designed for fairly normal, like linear relationships, not lines crossing and weaving across across the map. Um,
Yeah, linear trees, not linear star signs or like star maps. Sorry, family.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Move on, move on.
So you've also put down Vampire Survivors. I checked out the Steam page because I didn't realize, I was wondering why you'd gone back, and I realized that the 1.0 update has come out. So I presume that's what you've been playing.
Yeah, we talked about Vampire Survivors a little long ago. We kind of reviewed it. I think you and I have both since kind of played just a little bit more of it since we talked about it. But yeah, the 1.0 version came out, so the full quote unquote game of Vampire Survivors is now released. It's not an early release anymore. So I went back in, I went and got every achievement. The good thing about playing it during early release, right, was to get like every achievement back in like 7.0 was, it was like it took you a few runs, but like it didn't feel like you were being a completionist about it. You felt like you were just playing the game, and then all of a sudden you'd caught up to what was there. And then all I had to do was once a month just jump back in, do the latest like unlock the new character, get the new weapon, pop back out. 1.0 is out now. it's great. It's always been a great game. They add some final little touches just to kind of give a real sense of kind of beginning, middle, and end, I guess. And they add a lot of other little tweaks just to make it so if you have kind of reached the ultimate challenge with that game, they do just provide you with basically a here's a hard mode for you sycophants that think the game can't possibly be any harder for you. So there's a few more challenges in there if you want them, but otherwise, in terms of getting all the achievements, I've done that. It's very good. It's very nice. Jesus Christ, that game is so surprisingly good for how much it costs and for what it offers on its sleeve. The feedback loop you get is just effective.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to giving it a go at some point. It was a game that, like, it's weird. I always thought, like, oh, this is a good sort of, like, short game that I can fit in between in between things. But when I got to the point where I was regularly finishing runs, I realized, well, it's time based, so I know how long a run is, and it's always half an hour, which isn't actually that short. Like, that's the length of, like, a competitive Overwatch game. But
It's also
yeah,
it's half an hour until you take into account every time you freeze time to open a chest or level up.
yeah.
Then it actually gets like it kind of ends up being 40 minutes when you add on those little kind of those minute interruptions.
Yeah, it's testament to how good the game is and how good that sort of gameplay loop is that it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like you're having a quick 5 minute run and then you can move on to do something else. So yeah,
And then
I'll
the next
probably
thing you know, it's like night and you've got to go to bed.
yeah. All right, we're going to move on to our first section, and this month, Jonas, you're up first. You're talking about a TV show. What are you talking about, Jonas?
I would like to tell you about a television show called Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. This is a brand new show in which Guillermo del Toro introduces each episode with a cryptic monologue and then names the episode's story and director before we are plunged into the episode in question. Cabinet of Curiosities is an anthology series, so every episode kind of takes place in a different setting with different actors and different characters. In one episode, you might watch Rupert Grint attempting to contact his long deceased sister, and in another, you'll spend time with Kate Micucci. I haven't quite got that down. Kate Micucci, who, by the way, is the voice of Velma in Scooby Doo, or Oates of Garfunkel and Oates, as in her episode, she kind of spirals into a self-destructive obsession with healthcare products. Now, I'm not a horror fan, but the show was recommended to me last week, and knowing that I needed to watch something before the podcast, and thinking, ooh, this could be like, oh, what a great thing to watch for Halloween, I dove in head first. The episodes are all somewhat different in tone, and all kind of different flavors of horror. I personally found like I'm not really a horror person. So, I watched like episode 2 and 3 and found it, quite hard to watch. And I think that's only, that's a testament to how effective they are at kind of making me feel uncomfortable, not because they were bad or anything. And then I've got round to episode 5 and 6 today, and I felt way more in the right zone watching those episodes. I've either got very comfortable with the level of discomfort the show exhibits, or it could be that perhaps episodes 2 and 3 just kind of put some of their more gruesome scenes up front. Either way, I think I'm really getting into a good rhythm with it now. And with this being kind of Netflix's front page show releasing right around the Halloween period, and with such a big name like Guillermo del Toro in the title, this is a show that I think has a lot of confidence in itself, and it's well deserved. I think every episode of the show, I've watched 6 out of 8 so far, but every episode I've watched so far has something that really makes them shine. Some of the episodes are particularly strong from start to finish. Some of them are kind of not showing their hand. Some of them are kind of holding back that good stuff until the right kind of plot twist or drop halfway through, with slow burns and incredibly powerful payoffs. Other episodes are just weird, but in the right way, in a way that kind of really does a lot of that confidence and that kind of like that brand confidence, a lot of justice. It's a show that I think has a lot of similar charms as Black Mirror. I think just in terms of that really high production value, really strong concept delivery, and then a really great cast and kind of production value to get you to kind of, to get that episode well over the finish line. And also reminds me a lot of a show that I reviewed maybe about 2 years ago, which was the 2019 release of Twilight Zone. I think if the horror genre isn't a complete turnoff for someone, then I think this is genuinely a good show and that there will be something in here for them. I've got 2 more episodes of this show to watch, and I genuinely look forward to watching them. Before I hand over, this show does have some big content warnings. Of course, it's got horror in every single episode, but it really is quite strong on the blood and gore, depictions of violence and death. There's a little bit of nudity. There's definitely some drug and alcohol use. If you think you would be sensitive to any of those things, just know that this show does not do them in moderate quantity. Jamie, is this a show that has it caught your eye? Have you seen it on the Netflix front page? What do you know? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. I saw it announced, and I saw it come up on Netflix. I didn't realize that it was an anthology show. I'd only seen the name. I thought it was a movie or like a limited TV series or something. Um, but it does sound interesting. You know me. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to horror things. Um, but I have enjoyed some horror things lately. Nope being a good example. What would where would you say it falls on the sort of scale of like, horrifically bloody or like super psychological, or like is it just sort of unsettling? Like where would you say this is pitched at for the horror fan?
I think like every episode has at least a hint of that kind of psychological section to it. But I think yeah, that question kind of really highlights a point I made earlier, which is like there are very different flavors of horror in all these episodes. One episode will be about kind of like satanic rituals, and maybe you'll watch like a disfigured body, I don't know, like do some contortioning. In another episode, maybe you have to watch like you have to watch a mortician like just examine dead bodies, and so it's not violent gore, but they really show you his job with every gruesome detail.
Does it ever slip into something extreme in any of these sort of like aspects?
I think it does. I think it really does. I think how to put it, there were times where I definitely just was looking at the screen and I was going, "Oh, oh, this is a lot more horror gore than I like."
Hmm.
So for those moments, I would genuinely just kind of maybe glance around the room a bit and just kind of let those next 5 seconds just pass without too much kind of incident, and then the episode would go back to kind of its like its writing strengths or its character acting or whatever, and I would love all of that. But yeah, there are definitely instances of extreme horror of every flavor trickled throughout this entire series.
So do you think that that affects its accessibility, right? Because if you go into a horror movie, you can they tend to be a cohesive thing, so you can kind of get where you're going. Like when you go into Saw that you're going to see people get their fingernails ripped off and shit like that, and when you go see The Shining, you're expecting like sort of a more psychological kind of thing. But with this, it's sort of every episode being quite different, and presumably they don't announce what you're going to expect before you go in. Does it make it harder to recommend? Does it make it harder to like does it make it less accessible for people who aren't sort of willing to experience everything?
I mean, I guess this is one of those shows where it's like, if I knew you were particularly against one type of horror, but particularly like into another. So let's say, and I think this is like almost slightly truer, right? You're probably way more into like a psychological kind of thinker horror that really like
Yeah.
gets you to kind of like open up your kind of horizons of what is scary and what is what really does make you kind of fear, as opposed to just man getting slashed.
I really liked Midsummer. I really didn't like
Ah,
Saw.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this I think when I say like there is a lot of extreme violence, I guess it is actually not it's not very sore at all,
Mm,
but there are moments where people like are injured or it's depicted very honestly. Does that make
mm.
sense? Like
Yeah.
it's really just the camera doesn't turn away from
Yeah.
depictions of harm. But it's not like someone getting like a limb slowly torn off by a saw blade with a dancing puppet in their face,
I
laughing
mean,
because
that's a
the
very
key is
specific thing.
it is.
But like, you know,
Um,
I personally, I really can't stomach things like The Purge and things that sort of, you know, revel in the idea of just brutality. I think that, and
yeah, I
I
think
think that what I prefer is things that are more about like you say, like the psychological aspect of it. Like Nope isn't a film that revels in the idea of like the gleeful tearing apart of people kind of thing. Midsommar has some bloody violence and gruesome bits, but the majority of it is really about the sort of mood of the piece kind of thing.
I think there is it is a this is a lot more of a mood and a psychology show
Mm,
than perhaps I'm like verbalizing
mm,
outright. And I think that is just because it is not just that though. It is more there is probably like if you had to score these things, you'd probably average out the psychology quite highly on every episode. But with each episode having its own little kind of extra flavor, its own extra thing that the other episodes didn't do.
mm,
But yeah, I mean, like you kind of we think about like Guillermo del Toro's style. You know, obviously people think of Pan's Labyrinth when we think of Guillermo del Toro. I think of Shape of Water, which isn't particularly horrific at all. Um, but there's there's definitely like a kind of a signature style to it. But what's important about the anthology show is Guillermo del Toro is actually highlighting the fact that this isn't directed by him. He's actually showing off these
mm.
guest directors. So it's more like a showcase, like it's a variety show.
Yeah.
You know, a talent show of horror directors. And one of them was a story written by Lovecraft but adapted for this show, right? So in some cases, I think the writing isn't completely original, but obviously, you know, the screenplay and the acting is. So with that, you already know kind of what you're going into if you know Lovecraft, for example. And you know, apart from Cthulhu, I don't really know anything about Lovecraft, so I was still, you know, surprised by what that episode had in store for me. But yeah, if you're not super into like physical angry slashy violence, this is still going to be a good show for you. Just know that you're going to see a bit of blood and gore and you know injury, but it's not brutally malicious. It's just the camera's not turning away.
All right. Well, maybe I'll give it a go. Maybe if I'm feeling in a particularly strong and stable mood.
In this
uh,
country.
and yeah, I know it'll never happen.
Yeah.
All right. If you could, you are. Oh God, what am I gonna do for this?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've not told you like the plot of every episode, I know.
yeah. You Guillermo del Toro comes on screen and he says, "Welcome to my cabinet of curiosities. Time for a spooky tale of spooky spookumzing."
This is so uncanny. I just like him.
I know. I'm really nailing his accent. His spooky spookumzing. Tonight's tale is a one sentence review of this very spooky show, and it goes a little something like this.
Um, America's next horror director, the TV show. Yeah,
America's
yeah.
next horrific top model.
What's what's that show where America does talent shows?
America, American, America's Got Talent.
Yeah, yeah. Guillermo's Got Talent. That's what I. That's it.
Guillermo's Got Talent. All right.
GGT.
All right. We're going to move on to my review of this month, although I imagine both of us are going to be talking about this quite a bit because Jonas is the one who recommended it to me beforehand. This month, I am talking about The Rehearsal. So, a content warning, I guess, for this. There is a brief bit of anti-Semitism in it, although it is in no way what's the word, like, promoted, and a deep sense of anxiety, I would say, is a good content warning for this. So this is a TV show by Nathan Fielder of Nathan For You fame, a show that Jonas reviewed on this podcast a while back, which was sort of a light sort of interaction with the public comedy where he helped people improve their businesses through absurd ideas. Episode 1 of The Rehearsal opens with Nathan meeting a man at his house. He cracks some jokes, he gets a short tour around the place, and then he sits down in his living room to explain to the man what the show will be about. He says that he's going to help this man prepare for a major life event. In this case, explaining to a friend of his that he's been lying their entire friendship about having a master's degree. Nathan explains that he's come up with a process for preparing for anything called rehearsing, where he recreates the exact situation he plans to face. He builds sets identical to the real life location he plans to have the conversation in. He hires actors to play the other people, tasking them to covertly spy on the person they're pretending to be to get into character. And then he reveals that he has done exactly that for the conversation they are having at that moment. We're then shown Nathan sending people into the man's house under the guise of gas inspectors to scan his house. We see an identically recreated set in a soundstage, and we see Nathan practice coming up with awkward jokes with the actor playing the person he'll be talking to, the exact jokes he says at the beginning of the episode. The Rehearsal is an absolute achievement in comedic satire. It is intensely absurd, incredibly complex and deep in its ideas, and manages to be both one of the funniest and most unsettling things I've ever seen on TV. Through the viewpoint of this obsessive, anxious character that he portrays, Nathan is able to skewer the concept of reality TV, at once creating something that feels so on the nose as to clearly have been constructed, and somehow also a real portrait of what ordinary people will do in absurd, extreme circumstances. Fielder explores the breakdowns of the boundaries of reality in media. Often the actors he hires to play his targets feel more grounded than their real counterparts. Nathan rehearses for conversations that have intense, dramatic arcs in preparation, only to find the real ones are abrupt, often offensive, and routinely ridiculous. Complex ideas at once look at the process of preparing for a reality show and the planning that goes into making something feel real, while at the same time acknowledging that filming that process makes it a show you have to prepare for, often with actors hired to play extras becoming the subjects in their own right. And quite prominently, Fielder explores the relationship with reality TV to viewers who might not get the artifice through an absolutely heartbreaking interaction with a child actor who struggles to separate his life in one of the rehearsals with his very different home life. What makes this show so funny is the lengths to which Nathan Fielder will go, simulating a family Christmas by blanketing the entire property of a country house with fake snow day after day, installing digital mirrors in a home that show you as the age you're supposed to be in the simulation when you look back at yourself, setting up serendipitous encounters throughout a man's day in which he accidentally hears all the facts he needs to win a pub quiz. What makes this show memorable, though, and what elevates it above his previous work on Nathan For You, is that it's not a joke. Nathan never breaks character, even when forcing others to, and even in quite extreme circumstances. Fielder's complete commitment to the bit blurs the lines on what is real and what is artifice. The members of the public he has in the show are at once figures of ridicule and the only people who seem to know why they are there. The actors are at once part of the production and what the production is about. And Nathan is at once the creator, narrator, observer, and the main subject of the show. This show is brilliant. There is a depth and complexity to its ideas that I've not seen in a long while, and a full-blown commitment to its concept that helps it become, at least to me, an all-time classic. Jonas, you've seen the show. You recommended it to me. How do you feel about this experience?
Yeah, Nathan Fielder is a special beast. And I have a certain a special type of reverence for what that man has created. Like partially Nathan for You, which I never actually got around to finishing, but certainly for the rehearsal, and even more exceptionally for kind of where the rehearsal starts, but not as much for where it ends. But the whole process I think is phenomenal. There's something you sort of said about how a lot of watching this show is trying to understand, is Nathan a mastermind actor constantly in control of every situation that he's in, even when it looks like he isn't? Or is he truly this like victim of his own genius at times when people are essentially collapsing all around him, asking him to please have some introspection into the things that he's doing, not just to himself, but to the people around him, as he is, as people basically are asking him to just stop. And there's just something kind of incredibly fascinating when there's a pause of silence in the show and you hear Nathan Fielder's narrated, clearly like recorded audio in post, as he just says, I decided to double down, like something
Yeah.
along those lines where he just basically goes all in. Um, and yeah, I think there's something really fascinating about this man, right? Because he does these rehearsals with people and he basically promises that the people will be able to basically use his resources to get the outcome that they absolutely want in all these situations. And what this results in is several people calling Nathan a scam artist, a con man, a liar, a freak, a narcissist, a manipulator, and just like all around destroyer of good faith and relationships. And it's kind of fascinating to watch this man take those words really at face value, really hear the people that he's talking to, and decide that the way he's kind of going to disprove them is to commit to the bit, but with another layer, right? Add another layer to the bit because that will definitely improve the situation. And it just, and it, this show's only 6 episodes, but how far it goes in that short amount of time is just phenomenal. I think I don't know if you mentioned the second rehearsal that he pulls off basically, which may as well just last the entire show.
It's the core of the show, basically.
It's the
Yeah.
core of the show, and just like the first kind of paragraph brief of his next line, his next kind of sketch, if you will, whatever project is, he finds a woman, and she's like, "Oh, I would love to try. I would love to know if I'd be a good mother, but I don't. I'm not ready to be a mother. I'm not married." And he goes, okay, well, here's what we do. Here's a country house. You live in the country house. We supply you with child actors, and we will age up the child actor at, every few days or weeks, whatever, to make it feel like the child is growing up. And then you get to simulate raising a child. And then, even though we see so much more happen throughout the show, we keep coming back to that project, this thing that he set up, and just how he keeps putting himself in that situation more and more and more and more, while never knowing where Nathan Fielder, the actor and the character, exists. Like, we don't know where the boundary is. We don't know if we're watching Nathan Fielder, the human being who has ideas and projects, or if we're watching Nathan Fielder, the character that appears once he has an idea and a project.
I mean, my personal view on it is I think he's, I don't think he's as into it as he portrays on the show. I think that he's a very talented comedian. I think that the whole arc of the show is is a look at our relationship with TV, right? And what we consider real in TV. And I think that he he does a good job of taking circumstances. He's a very good improviser, and he does a very good job of taking the circumstances that's presented to him, and building a narrative around them and helping work them towards what he wants to be. It's absolutely no coincidence that the final episode is mostly him with actors. And I think that's because that's him building towards his end point. But I think that what he really is a person who has incredible attention to detail and is incredibly good at, ironically, incredibly good at preparation and planning and working out how to get these kind of ideas to work, because it is so dense with metaphor and ideas and sort of just like a reflection of people's relationship to media. What we consider to be real and what shows will choose to present of people to get certain things to get certain shows to work. I think that he, I think in everything there is an element of ourselves. Like in any media that anyone makes, there is an element of the creator in there. I think that's the point, and I think that's what separates it from like AI generated art. But there's been a lot of talk of him being like this madman who somehow got people to give him cameras, and I think it's the complete opposite. I think he's so smart, and I think it's such a cleverly crafted, constructed thing with a guy who is a very quick improv performer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was quite so you'll remember that last episode, my recommendation, I believe, was Super Eye Patch Wolf. What is Nathan Fielder? This is a 1-hour YouTube essay to kind of like the weird majesty that this man kind of commands on camera and kind of throughout his entire life. And it goes into what did he used to do? Did he actually come from this college? Did he actually do comedy? Where did he start off in TV? What do we see when this man kind of appears on camera in other medias and things like that? And he did do comedy. Like he was in a comedy team with Seth Rogen, would you believe it? Or captained by Seth Rogen was the quote I think I heard. And it's clear that this man, everything he's done on television has been to elicit kind of like a comedic effect. He's never tried to host like an antiques roadshow or something where he's very, just serious and about the business. He's garnering laughs. But yeah, there's something about that, the execution where he thinks to have these conversations and shows people these flowcharts, and the way that he self-directs like the show as he goes, because he clearly has an idea in his head of what would be really fascinating footage, and the show goes as far as to tell us when Nathan decides to basically hit pause on the script or on the scene. And part of the show is about us seeing Nathan edit the timeline. Like it's part of the narrative that he does this. And it's fascinating, and
Yeah.
it's fucking hilarious when we see him go through the same event with a child, but with different aged child actors, so he can try and replicate a certain emotion or
Or
interaction.
playing different parts in the family. And I think one of the things I think that makes it really appeal and what makes it feel so fresh is that it intentionally is quite transgressive of the conventions of its own medium, right? Like what it is taking the face off of a reality TV show. When you think about it, what he's doing is not that different from what like Louis Theroux did in his documentaries, right? He was very good at working out what kind of questions would elicit interesting or comedic responses. He was quite good at, working out when a situation was going to be quite out there and different kind of thing. But what Nathan's very good at on top of that is identifying how this can be built into a larger thing, right? How this can be, how you can use the sort of conventions of the medium to to subvert expectation, and parody itself. There's a moment in it where he's playing an actor at one of his workshops, and he talks about
Yeah.
noticing the cameras, right? And that's a moment, and like the way that that is written is so clear. It is like probably the one point that points out that Nathan clearly knows what he's doing
Yeah.
when he's talking about, like, you know, I have to do something for the cameras. I have to play up for the cameras. I know this show isn't about me. It's about this. Oh wait, but then why do they have the cameras? Surely it is about me, kind of thing. This idea that, all reality TV is somewhat a performance and everything is edited and bits are picked out. I just think he's a fascinating, brilliant performer. And I would be, I I'm so excited to see what he does next, but I can't imagine anything being better than this.
I mean, I think, I wonder if this is like, will he collaborate with someone, right? Like, is that where he goes next, where someone comes to him with an idea, knowing what he's done, knowing what he's capable of,
But like,
and
how does that character collaborate with anyone? Because the whole point is that that the character of Nathan Fielder is not a comedian. He's not a like a reality TV show maker. He is he's an sort of anxious kind of megalomaniac character. Like the only, like, I could only see him absolutely destroying anyone he collaborates with. Like,
yeah, I was just thinking, like, okay, so maybe he teams up with like another awkward person. I can just think of comedians. Oh, megalomaniac, Elon Musk. And then he it's just Elon Musk pays him to do something good for him, and then he just destroys Elon Musk's like life.
but that in a way almost takes, almost, ruins it, right? Like,
Yeah,
like, as soon as I think the joy in this and the whole point of it, the whole sort of crux of the idea is that you are supposed to constantly question what is real, and in the back of your
yeah,
mind, no, none of it is, because it's a TV show. But but there's a part of your mind that goes, is it believable enough that I'm willing to suspend my disbelief? Do I believe that this woman is an anti-Semitic lunatic? Yeah. And then she has the moment where she goes, of course I know this is all fake. And you're like, oh fuck, who are you? Kind of thing. Like, it that 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 being on the
Y-
line is what makes this work. In the same way that with Nathan, for you, that was kind of the thing as well. Like, being on the line of whether these customers and businesses really truly believe this was ever going to work for them is what made it work. And
mm.
like, really, like, throwing the artifice in its face, going, right, and now you're pairing up with Seth Rogen and he's got a business idea for you, sort of makes it, I don't know, changes it.
You're you're right, you're right, but I also think that Nathan Fielder at this point will subvert, full stop.
Hmm.
Anything we think might be really obvious or predictable, anything that we think might spoil, this we could be surprised.
So here's a question for you, because you know Sacha Baron Cohen famously stopped doing what his impression stuff in public because people knew his characters, so it became impossible to do. Right? People knew Ali G, people knew Borat. They couldn't, like, how could they do that? They would just be, oh, it's fucking Borat. I know it's a show, whatever. Do you think the way that Nathan has built his character and the way that he does his shows, that he's kind of immune to that? That if people play up to the show, that is exactly part of the point?
If Nathan knocked on your door right now, and there was definitely like some cameramen behind him, like how do you feel about anything he says?
Because with something like Ali G or Borat, right? You don't know what they're going to do, but you kind of get the script, right? They're going to be
You
ridiculous. You're going
and
to
you're
have to,
kind of the victim,
you're the
and
straight man or whatever. Yeah. But with Nathan Fielder, you don't know. Like the people who felt like they were going to be the straight man then turn out to be just as bad as everyone else or just as off as everyone else. Like,
And I mean, the thing is, yeah, I think the rehearsal works well as well because Nathan doesn't find straight men. Like, as
mm,
in, he doesn't really. Some of the people he interacts with are not just normal.
some of them are
They
incredibly not normal.
they have an element of character, let's say, in and of themselves. And Nathan kind of revels in playing the straight man to them.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Like,
the the moments of that woman
oh,
trying to explain
Halloween
Halloween.
is satanic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh. Well, maybe you should
Uh,
just write down a list of the things that aren't satanic.
and just, and it's like, obviously, like, you can tell that, like, Nathan knows that he's pressing buttons, but he doesn't know the result of pressing those buttons, and he's just as curious to find out
Mm,
what that like, the result of that conversation as we are. You know?
yeah.
And just Jesus Christ, like, there were some times there that were absolutely, like, startling and kind of heart-wrenching and hard to watch, and then Nathan just shows you that it wasn't real. Like,
Mm,
and it's, like, genuinely horrifying that you catch yourself caring for a second, and you're like, "Fuck, he got me."
yeah.
But
It
that was the feeling he wanted you to have at the end of that.
I think you'd go through and you'd on every rewatching you'd have different reactions to things and different feelings about things. And I think that like yeah, like it obviously it gets the humor from the sort of like but it wasn't real kind of thing we go around. But there are moments in there where it like it it is so close to feeling real that what is real in media it just there just isn't a thing. There just is no such thing as reality in media, and it's almost a pointless question. Ah,
Okay, James, can we just record the whole review that you just did of the rehearsal? But this
oh,
time, could you
yeah,
could
yeah,
you
yeah,
just do it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was good. It was good. It was good.
yeah, yeah,
It's just, I think just because of how we're gonna frame we're gonna cut the episode down. To fit, we might just need like a one line summary
yeah.
of
Okay,
the
okay,
the
Dad.
rehearsal.
Yeah,
Can
I
we
can
do
do
that?
that. Yeah,
Thanks, son.
I love you, Dad.
Go, go.
um, the most intensely absurd and anxiety-inducing show I've seen on TV that I would absolutely watch again.
Cut. He never says cut.
No, he doesn't. All right,
He
we're
never
going
says
to
cut.
take a brief break. Oh no, actually, you've got anime. You've got anime to talk about. You've got 300 animes to talk about. Tell us about
Yeah.
your animes.
You got stuff to talk about as well. Okay, look, listen. Today, anime is saved. Everyone, don't worry. It's a great season for anime. If you worried that it was going to be a bad season for anime, stop worrying. This season has us being able to watch the first season of Chainsaw Man, which is probably the most anticipated anime of the year since the manga finished like last year, and it's kicking ass. Mappa are doing a great job with Chainsaw Man. Everything is beautiful. It's so over animated. Like, I mean, like moments where characters could just stand still. They are doing little expressions, little movements. There's so much emotion and expression. It's got this weird kind of like filter and tint to it that makes all the colors just like slightly off in a way that makes Chainsaw Man have a unique kind of palette and look of its own. The actions and fast and sporadic. The opening's great. Every episode has a unique ending animated and with their own unique songs. You just don't see this much attention and love towards a single production, really. Not holes. And this is kicking off on the first four episodes. We're not talking about like, it's not that they did a great job at episode one and the last episode. The quality is completely upkept throughout the whole thing. I will probably talk more about Chainsaw Man in the near future. Spy X Family, by the way, if you want cute and cuddly comedy in which a little telepath girl has a spy dad and an assassin mum, and they're all trying to keep their powers secrets from each other, go watch Spy X Family. She's got a clairvoyant dog now called Bond. It's very cute. My Hero Academia is back. My Hero Academia has got probably one of the biggest and most action-packed seasons so far. I noticed that they're not making a film this year, which I think is a comment, like, which is evidence that they are putting all of their efforts into making this season absolutely great. Some really big narrative moments are going to happen this season. Looking forward to it. Bleach is back. Bleach, that anime that was really popular back in like 2009, after not airing for something like 6 or 7 years because it just basically started to flop and be bad. Bleach is back, and the people making Bleach are the kind of people who clearly cared about when Bleach was good. So they're just making it good again, and that's really nice. Mob Psycho Season 3 is also back, but I haven't got around to watching that. But it's one of my favorite animes and mangas of all time, so I will be watching that. I recommend all of these things. Please watch these things and then talk to me about how you're watching these things. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Uh, cool. I also put down She-Hulk. I finished She-Hulk. Well, the season finished for She-Hulk. I thought it ended pretty good. I probably won't end up doing a full review of She-Hulk, but what I would say is, I think it's, I think it's a fun, light comedy. I think it was a bit harshly reviewed by a lot of people. I think it's just quite fun. The concept of sort of legal advice or lawyering in a world where superheroes can, like, destroy whole buildings and shit like that. It's quite light female led comedy. It's quite meta. It definitely, the ending I felt was quite good. And it in particular, it's a sort of meta. Um, it's making a big joke about Marvel as a whole, and I think it's really aimed at people who have had a lot of like very serious Marvel movies, and this is like a sort of, hey, we're gonna have a series of making fun of ourselves, and then we'll go back to being very serious again. And yeah, I think it was good. I think you could do a lot worse. Have you seen it at all, Jonas?
I haven't watched any of it. I think Mary. I don't know if Mary's finished it or if Mary's watched a bit of it. She hasn't talked it up, but she also hasn't talked it down. So I guess
Yeah.
that's it's just middle of the road in it.
Daredevil
No,
from the Daredevil TV show, the Netflix one. He's in
I
it.
heard he's
He's
in it,
excellent. Very, very
and
good.
tall British good place lady
Yes.
Jamila.
Jamila Jamil.
Jamil. She's in it, and I like her. So she's kind of the main reason I'm going to watch it is just because I like her,
Yeah.
and I would like to see
She's
more
good.
shows with her.
I think that, like, I think that the ending felt to me appropriate for the show, if not super spectacular. But also, I I I as far as Marvel shows go, it was fine, right? Marvel shows typically have really trash endings, and I don't think and at least this ending felt like it fit the show that it was in. so
Right,
so
fair
that's
enough.
fine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'll when I find myself having like a really quiet week of work, I'm sure I'll be able to push through it.
Hmm. All right, we're going to take a brief break, but when we come back, we'll be talking games. We've got a very old game and a very new game. We'll be talking movies. We've got a very old movie and a very new movie. And then we'll be talking random Netflix movie, which is somewhere in the middle. um, so we'll see you in a bit. Right. Hello, everybody. Daredevil is absolutely fantastic in it. He's very, very funny in it. And actually, it's a really nice, different side to that character, which I quite liked. Hello, Mary. Hello, Koto. Hello, everybody. Hello,
Hello,
Kev, by
everyone.
the way. I saw you were lurking. And hello, Ray. Good to see you. Overcommitting to the bit, exhibit 2030001. That was me calling you dad, I think.
I mean, that whole show is overcommitted to the bit, so it was kind of
Mm,
apt.
yeah.
Um, no,
That poor
I'm.
kid, man.
Oh yeah, we didn't get into it, but I think that's the kind of thing where if anyone it's really hard to get into that, right? Because
Yeah.
fucking hell, it's fucked. It's a fucked up situation.
But then you don't know how much of it is real.
Yeah. I think that child is. I genuinely think that child is genuine. I think that mother is genuine in context of her child. Like, I think.
But then you have a scene of him basically doing the whole thing as her,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh god.
Where'd you get that jumper? That's a really nice jumper. Where'd you get it? And when he asked that question, I was like, no. Don't you fucking dare.
And then it fades from her house to the set of her house.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a brief break. I'm going to grab a cup of tea. We'll be back in a mo.
Back in a bit.
See you in a bit, everyone. This is how the pros do it. Oh, no! No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
I was not.
Just trying to get a rifle.
Oh! Are you beating them to death?
No. This is how this is going now. This is how this game is played now. This is Silent Assassin suit only. Stop!
Oh, you dickhead!
We start off by building. Oh shit! Right, that's a good start. Oh shit! Oh my god!
What? Oh!
Run!
Run! Oh my god! What is it with this game? I see what you mean by eagles.
Oh shit! Why do I not learn from my mistakes? Why do I never learn from my mistakes? Finally understand how autopilot works. Please don't accelerate me into the planet. Oh, shit. Oh! Jesus Christ! What? No! I lost the sight! No! What happened there?
I don't want to talk about it, Jamie.
Can I have my fishing rod, please?
With my... It says I've met 34 out of 35 people. But I've met
I will not let you through. Detain! We fucking got it! Gulag! You done fucked up, my friend. Gonna get gulag and death thanks to me. No! Just get permit, it's fine. Detain! Off to gulag. Now that man is going to gulag. Aha! Wrong! What do you have to say for yourself, you son of a bitch? Detain! To the gulag with you! Got any bombs? Well, that looks like a weapon to me. You have made a mistake coming in here. Is it so obvious? Yes. To the gulag, my friend. They don't look the same. Detain! Female? Female? Interrogate! Are you a woman? Please let me through. In the gulag! I have family to not feed. To the gulags with you! You're wasting my time. Aha. Wrong. Wrong. Detain! Passport is your ticket the fuck out of here. No. I'm not leaving. Detain! Oh! No, you fucking ain't. Detain! To the gulag! If nudes are bad, you will go to gulag. Detain? Detain. Well, that's different. I do not understand. Detain! Oh no, I thought that was wrong. I have no idea what you're talking about. Detain! Detain! To the gulag with you! Aha, ha, ha. You done fucked up. Detain! To the gulag with you! What's going on here? Detain! The gulags are going to be full today. Just in time for Christmas. Ah! Gotcha, you fucker. Detain! One last gulag to round off the day. Female. Detain? Detain! Gulag with you, my friend. Detain! I love the smell of gulag in the morning. Our first detention of the day. You're in. Oh, wait. Are you an international criminal? Wait. Oh, I almost missed my opportunity to detain. To the gulag! Oh, wait. Yes, criminal. I have nothing to say, but gulag! Calliston Catherall. Fine. Sure. I don't even know what I detained him for, but I was given the opportunity, so I detained him. She's covered in guns! You made a mistake. To the gulag! I do not understand. Detain! That's not fine. Detain! I think that's high hand. No, it's not. I don't know anything about that. Detain! I'm detaining you. That is what I'm doing. Wrong. Lies. You're doing crimes. I understand. Detain! Gulag! Aha. Last gulag of the day. Discrepancy detected. Okay. Oh, detain! Don't worry about it. Who needs reason for denial stamp when you can detain? No known alias. Detain. We're gonna get a lot of gulag bonuses today, aren't we? Oh, you got it. You don't understand. Detain. Oh, so many good gulags today. I'm sorry. Detain. I have authority. Off to gulag, my friend. Hurry up. More people to send to gulag. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Can I detain? Detain! Up you go. See you later. Thanks for the watch. Detain! Oh! Bloody hell. Is that you? Caught another criminal, friends! Are these the same? No. Oh? Detain! Off to the gulag. Oh, I can feel the bonuses from the gulags coming my way. Maybe things get too sexy in here. Ah, come on, sir. Nope. Oh my god. Fucking hell. Excuse me, sir. What about the bomb on your back? Yeah, that's not you. One last gulag to round out the day. Tell me, why have you false passport? Detain! Off to gulag! It is being confiscated. Detain! You could have just left me with passport. Aha! You thought you could get this one by me? What kind of idiot do you think I am? Gulag! Hey! You see one guard knock a woman out with rifle, you've seen them all. Excuse me, sir, this is forgery. Gulag! Next, please! Hope you don't go to gulag! Oh, who am I kidding? I do. Excuse me, sir. Are you criminal? Up you go! Sorry, Georgie boy. Gulag once more. That doesn't look male to me. Detain! This doesn't let you in. No, you don't. Detain! Detain! I know what to say. Gulag! Detain! Gulag! These aren't tasteful in the slightest. You shall be detained. Okay, we don't need to detain. Gulag! Okay. Gulag! Hey, you got to gulag. What you got to gulag? Who am I to say? It's Not my place. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's the games section. We've slid right into the games section. And first up is Jonas. What are you talking about this month on the games section?
Well, James, since you asked, I'm going to be reviewing a little game called Immortality. Immortality, some content warnings for you. You should know that Immortality contains some strong language, violence, blood and gore, as well as nudity, sexual assault, and the use of alcohol and drugs. If you are tempted to play this game but you don't remember the content warnings, you'll be glad to know that the game wears its content warnings like the first thing you see when you play the game is a long list of content warnings, and you can press a button on the main menu to get that full list of content warnings brought up to you in a very nice bullet point format. Really appreciate the game's kind of upfrontness about all that. And just while I'm rambling as well, this game was on Game Pass, so it's a game that you can try on Game Pass, and if you love it, then you can decide if you want to throw money at it or just play it on the Game Pass. So there you go. Immortality, if you didn't know, is the third game developed by Sam Barlow, who previously released Her Story and Telling Lies. Sam's games all have sort of a trend with them in which they all use filmed footage or full motion video might be the terminology here. They all kind of use film footage to make up a lot of the kind of gameplay footage, if you will. Immortality is no different. Immortality is set up with a simple premise. Actress Marissa Marcel starred in 3 movies from sort of 1960s to the 1990s. But none of those movies were ever released, and Marissa hasn't been seen since. You, the player, are then given access to short clips, kind of all in these like small little film reels that contain sort of unedited film, rehearsal, and interview footage, all of which relates to the films and the actor Marissa Marcel in some way. Sam Barlow games have a trend of leaving the player very unguided. In Immortality, you're kind of told this background. And I mean, actually, you can play the game without any of this information. I clicked play without looking at the premise at all, so I didn't know any of that when I went in. But the game does give you this information for free before you kind of dive right into this film footage. And you're sort of then able to go through various clips, and if you haven't unlocked a clip, then you haven't seen it and you won't know how to watch it. And so I guess the puzzle of the game is discovering new footage and watching it. And to discover new footage, you kind of have to use a admittedly needlessly niche reverse image searching system. Just to kind of expand on that, in Her Story, the interface you use is you're using a computer terminal, and you're able to search clips based on typing a word into a search box, and if the word is said in the transcript of the clip, it shows up. So if you type the word name, 4 clips appear, and if you watch all 4 clips, the person being interviewed will literally say the word name at some point. This game doesn't let you use something quite as intelligent as that. Instead, you have to be currently watching a video clip, pause it at any given point, and basically click on a random face, object, or item currently in the scene, and you'll then just be taken to a random scene that contains the same or similar item. And where this just kind of lets me down a bit is I'm not even given a choice of like 5 clips. I'm just forced to go find. It just forces me to 1 clip, and I did find that narrowing of the system was a bit frustrating. Anyway, you start using this system, and it takes time to properly understand what Immortality is actually asking the player to really achieve. But as you kind of start to go down this rabbit hole, you watch a couple of handful of clips, it starts kind of planting sort of potential questions and mysteries into the player's mind. you'll sort of ask yourself, oh, why was that actor suddenly recast? Or why do they seem to be doing something different now? Or what happened there? It sounds like the director might have collapsed on set and he's suddenly not in the next scene. What clip do I need to watch to try and understand what happened there? Or you'll watch like a kiss happen in the middle of filming, but you'll look at the actors' reactions and you'll sort of go, was that even part of the script? And if not, why did that happen? And over time, the mysteries and questions sort of start to pile up, compelling you to watch more and put the pieces together yourself. Now, if you enjoyed going through this sort of journey with her story, pen and paper in hand as you start to find answers to your own questions and squeezing the game as hard as you can for those big aha moments, Immortality absolutely doesn't disappoint. I think, the weakness of the game is the aha moments really do come slowly. This is a longer game with a lot more footage to kind of work your way through, and perhaps less obvious questions and answers than certainly her story presented. It's a slow burn, and its realizations may not even solidify after you've seen all the right footage, quote unquote. But just being able to discuss the content of the game and its narrative kind of feels like a reward in and of itself. Immortality does something very special with its presentation and with what it chooses to show you, and it gives you a very definitive end, which when you get there, and it took me a long time to get there, you will feel this kind of quite overwhelming sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that I think is well worth the time that you put into it. Jamie, I think, have you played Her Story or Telling Lies, first of all?
I've played Her Story. We talked about it
Yeah.
on this podcast at one point. And Her Story, I really liked the mechanic that it had with the being able to sort of type a word in and see your 5 clips for the different things. I have 2 questions basically based on my experience with Her Story. The first one is, Her Story didn't really have a definitive ending. You use it sort of said, "Are you done?" And if you felt like you were, like it asks you a question, and if you feel like you can answer that question, it goes cool, and it doesn't actually matter whether you know the answer or not. It just goes, that's basically a "are you done" kind of thing. Does this game do the same thing, or does it have a culmination?
It does the same thing differently.
Okay, right.
Yeah?
So it doesn't need you to complete it, as it were. You decide, okay, I know what's happened here, and then you leave.
Even then, um, it's more like if you imagine like you're scratching off your bingo board or whatever,
Hmm.
it's more like once you've scratched off a certain percentage, I think the game goes, you're ready for this. You're ready for this, and you're ready for the last thing we're going to show you.
Okay, because it was interesting. Like with Her Story, it definitely felt like, you could stop at "I get the trick," or you could stop at "I get the trick and I understand the timeline," or you could stop at "I get the trick and I intimately know these people's lives."
Yeah.
And and it sounds like this game, what it does is it actually goes, "You've hit the point where we want you to stop, and we're not going to let you like just grind around in it forever."
So the annoying thing was that I ground around in it for what felt like forever,
Okay.
hunting for the ending because I felt like the ending was 5 minutes away, and I felt like that 1 hour into my 6 hour stream after already playing the game for 4 hours. So it eluded me, but I couldn't put it down, right? Like there was something so compelling about chasing this dragon. And then when the game finally like gifted me, it's like, okay, Jonas, you've triggered the
You're
ending.
done.
I was not only fucking ecstatic, but kind of like in reverence of this because I'd been looking for this for so long, and I'd been seeing so much and learning so much.
Were you satisfied with the ending?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. I mean, that's
It,
that's a big thing because a lot of these games they don't satisfy you. They end with people getting pushed into the lake with big sticks. It's you know
uh, and it was the kind of thing where when I finished it, I was like, I think I understand. I think I understand like 60% of the difficult story, right?
hmm,
The hard stuff to understand. And then I talked about it with a friend, and I was making revelations to him that he hadn't occurred to him, but he was saying stuff to me that like I was like, "Oh shit. Oh yeah, okay, fuck. I didn't interpret it like that. Yeah, okay."
So do you think
So
that part of the magic trick is not giving you everything,
I
right?
think it is. Yeah, I think it
That
really is.
that if you were allowed to just see everything, just be there, like how her story at the end, you can keep going as long as you want. You can actually cheat code it so you can just see all of it. Like, do you think that part of the magic trick on it is that it goes, nope, if you want to see that, you're gonna have to go through again. You're gonna have to have another experience.
Well, thankfully, the game does let you jump back in. You get an ending, and then you can just keep going if you want. But the ending is very obvious.
Right.
Like the game kind of pulls you aside for 5 minutes and says, "This is the ending."
You'll have a better experience if you stop now.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we're gonna show you the last thing that this world has to tell you. But if you want to then go and 100% the footage, it's all still there, but you're gonna have to keep using that digging mechanic. I don't know if there's actually any codes or anything, but
It's
yeah,
a bit like games that have like like commentary modes where you go, right, you've done the game, you've had it how we expect you to experience it. If you want to eke every tiny little bit out of this game, go for it, but that's not what we recommend. What we recommend is you stop now and have that experience.
it's just like how a game might just say that you completed the map when you completed it when you've searched 90% of it,
Hmm.
because getting that 10%, like getting that 100% is actually really unreasonable.
Yeah.
Like it's pixel hunting.
Yeah.
The game's basically saying like, look, you don't have to go pixel hunting. You've done it. Don't
You've had
worry.
enough, yeah.
Um, but if you pixel hunt, in this case, it's not a map, it's footage, and that footage may enlighten you more.
So
But anyways,
the other thing I
it's
wanted
great.
to ask was about the actual mechanic of finding the different clips, because in the way that her story system worked, you got a really good sense of time because at the beginning it says you will get the earliest 5 things that with that word, and as you play the game, you get more of a sense of, oh, when I get something near the end of the reel, that's actually really useful. That's really like difficult to do. So I should hold on to those things and keep that information. Uh, did you feel like you had that kind of control over the narrative, over the way that you explored these things, or because you described it as random, which feels less satisfying?
It's really quite dissatisfying, I think. Um, the way that the narrative works in this is there are 3 films that this actress is involved in, right?
Hmm.
So film 1 is like 1960s. Film 3 is in 1990s. If I click a potted plant that shows up in the first movie, it has an equal amount of chance of jumping me to a potted plant that just happens to show up in the third movie, the second movie, a TV interview, the same scene in the same first film just 5 minutes later, etc. And it
Right.
doesn't show me a selection, it just kind of picks one and anchors me to it.
So do you feel like you don't have a lot of control?
Yeah.
And does that take away your sense of space, your sense of time?
Okay, so there are times where actually the controls really like makes a lot of sense, right? If you are a character that shows up in only 2 scenes in the film, and I click on your face, I'm gonna get the other scene.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna feel smart for doing that because I'm like, there's so little in this second scene that your face was really the only key to this door, right?
Mm.
But when the scene you're desperately looking for, like when you don't know where it takes place, you don't know what actors are going to be in the scene, and you've clicked on every conceivable thing leading up to that scene, and nothing's taking you to the scene you know exists. You know it exists because you know the story enough to know that something happens later,
Yeah.
but you just can't find it. That's very frustrating. That's what led me to almost a point of exhaustion with that kind of like that stream I was doing, where I don't know, I just needed to I knew that someone died, for example, right? Like I know someone dies, and I am clicking on their face and I'm not getting the scene. And I'm clicking on blood and I'm not getting the scene. And I'm clicking on just anything and I'm not getting the scene, and it's just and it's just like without knowing how he died, and without knowing where he died, and without knowing who was around when he died, I'm just grasping at straws after a while, and it's one of those things where if you know what you're looking for, the most frustrating part of that game is getting it. It's when you don't know what you're looking for and you just let the game kind of like surprise you with answers and questions. Like when you're just kind of having a nice little kind of dawdle around and you're discovering stuff like naturally, it's really fun.
It's funny though, because that in a sense, I get what you're saying, but having not played it, that almost sounds more interesting to me than the way that Her Story did it. Because Her Story, you would find yourself being like, God, what's a word that someone might say? And you would
Yeah,
like
I know.
and you would type it in,
Yeah,
and you'd get like, and if you did find something via that, like just via randomly putting in a word, you'd sort of be like, fuck, I mean, I could have put anything, right? and
yeah.
and, and whereas the idea of like having a toolbox presented to you, having a bunch of things presented to you, and being like, what do you think's important here? It sort of reminds me a bit of Obra Dinn, right? Where you're having to name all the people and have their jobs, and the longer you look at it, the more you realize, oh, everything in this room's a clue, not just the things that are obviously clues, but the tags on the hammocks, the orientation of the hammocks, all these kind of things. Um, yeah.
There are genuinely times where I felt very intelligent for finding a scene by following a specific thread, right?
Mm,
And I was like, I followed that thread and I discovered this scene because I chose to click on one of the extras, and this extra shows up as an extra in the other film in an obscure scene that nothing else has led me here yet.
yeah.
That's the kind of moment where I'm like, oh, I fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
Very good. But scene where I know what's behind the door. I just don't know what the key is. Like that's the frustration,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm just dangling this keychain of 1,000
So here's
and
a
I'm just
question.
trying every one.
If you click the same thing twice, would it take you to the same place both times?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not totally random.
Here's the thing. So let's say you watch a clip that's a minute long.
Hmm.
Let's say you click on my face in the first second.
Hmm.
It'll take you to clip 39. Let's say you click on my face at like 30 seconds in. Might take you to clip 46, and it might be because I'm making a different facial expression. It might be because my face is angled differently. It might be because the context of the
Oh
scene is
boy.
different. And the thing is I don't know the science behind it, so I can't tell you why it matters.
Right.
But then you'll click on my face in the next scene that you've just got to, and it'll just take you to a different scene. And then you'll click on my face there, and it'll take you to a different scene. And you'll hop between 50 different scenes. But you need to sit and watch those scenes as well. And then something new will catch your eye. So you won't actually go find all 50 scenes with my face. And the next time you do this, it may not even take you to the same.
God, it sounds intense. All right.
It's worth it though. I think for all of my frustrations with that system, game's phenomenal. Game is phenomenally
Well,
good.
we'll give it a go because we really liked Her Story. So and I saw it come up on Steam when it was released, and I like the idea of it. So I'll give it a go. All right. You are someone is looking through old footage of 3 movies that you made, one in the 70s, one in the 60s, and one in the 90s. But none of them were released because something bad happened. And they're looking through old footage of those movies, and they click on your face, and it takes them to a scene where you were describing the game Immortality in one sentence, and this is what they see.
The game is yet another excellent delivery on how we can do so much with so little.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, we're moving on to my review of the month. And my review of the month is a game I said I wouldn't review, but then I haven't played very much this month other than Overwatch, so here we are. But that being said, I have some stuff to talk about, and I do think I've gotten to the heart of this. And in fact, actually, I'll talk about it, but there is a reason to why I think this game is worth talking about now. So I'm talking about Skyrim, a little known game by a company called Beth Star. I don't know, they're some little indie outfit. Hopefully one day they'll get bought up by some kind of mega corporation. Wouldn't that be the dream? So yeah, everyone knows what Skyrim is, but for completion, I will give a bit of a description of what it is. It's an open world RPG set in a fantasy world. You play a character of your own creation who's caught crossing a border illegally, and then is sentenced to death, along with the leader of a resistance movement called the Stormcloaks. And just as you're about to die, a dragon swoops in and fucks the place up, allowing you to escape. Then you're launched into the world, and you can explore dungeons and join guilds and learn magic and ignore the main quest for as long as you like. So I'm talking about this Skyrim this month mainly because I found myself going back to it over and over again in recent months, and I kind of wanted to explore why and why it might be worth it you doing that as well. Part of the reason that we started doing this podcast was to recommend things to each other and to other people, and I think that there is a lot to recommend about going back to Skyrim all this time after its release. So at its heart, I think that Skyrim gets a lot of basic things right, and I think that's why it's had its staying power. The world is complex and interesting, but any one quest or character will bring you up to speed enough to understand what you're doing. There's no long and confusing dialogue boxes from WoW here. If you're doing a quest from a Daedric Lord, they will make sure to explain what kind of fucked up demon they are within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. If you're joining the Dark Brotherhood, they'll make it very clear they are not a Tea Party society. But what stops this feeling patronizing is the really great writing in this game. It's not beautifully written monologues that make you feel deep emotion, but it's blockbuster style exposition through action. You won't just get told what the Dark Brotherhood is, you'll get kidnapped by their leader and forced to murder someone. They explain to you what a Dragonborn is by having you kill a dragon and literally suck out its soul. This game is the blockbuster action movie approach to RPGs and world building. Quests are short, but quest chains are long, giving you the thrill of a quick and exciting victory whilst building to a satisfying conclusion of an arc that makes you feel part of the world. Dungeons you come across in the world feel like modular side stories that can be picked up for quick thrills and wacky story ideas. But none of this stops the world feeling deep and complicated. Everything you learn fits into a wider pool of knowledge of a world that feels infinitely old. This works well with the main thing that brought me back to the game, which is the modding scene. Bethesda did an amazing job of making this game incredibly malleable, and modders have really taken that and ran with it. Our assets have been improved, whole expansion-sized quest lines have been added, and software has been developed for the speedy and safe installation of mod packs so big they are effectively whole new games. But while many games have more capabilities, the reason that Skyrim has become known for it is these core fundamental values in its design. It's a world that's accessible and broken into small chunks of playtime, perfect for small-scale modders to add their own slice of content to, and yet holds a vast playground that feels so infinite and unknowable that people's fan projects can slot seamlessly in. And I just think that you could spend, the hundreds of hours in this game and not see all the content. And I think that gives it a sort of endless feeling, which I think that a lot of modern RPGs struggle to achieve at this level of quality. I I assume you've played Skyrim, Jonas?
um, I almost don't want to answer you honestly. I of course I've played Skyrim. It came out on November the 11th, 2011. I remember it well. I
It's funny though,
remember.
some people haven't, and I have encountered people who haven't. So, and I don't
Well,
know where they've been living.
they're not gamers. Yeah, Skyrim feels like the modern Doom in that it will play on everything, right? Like, it's the game that people swear that, if you had to pick one game to play for the rest of your life and you needed it to needlessly entertain you, Skyrim is easily like a top 5 category, like, category picker for that concept. It is not only wide, it is deep. It is deep in the sense of there are these different factions with their different quest lines, with the perks and the weapons and the factions and the specialization of your own character and the order in which you explore things and the slightly randomness of, the combat outcomes or the fact that the world interacts with each other while you're not there. Like, the world is alive and things kind of, not a lot, but there are elements of the world that move on while you're not watching them, which just gives everything a small element of kind of procedural randomness. This is not a roguelike. Things are not being randomized, but things are being decided while you're not around. You are not the sole influencer of this world. And that kind of makes it feel far more alive than, as we say, most RPGs, where we tend to have a lot of RPGs will make kind of isolated elements so that they don't interact, so that they can't ruin each other. But in Skyrim, smaller towns and outposts, while important NPCs obviously can't die, they'll simply be knocked unconscious. You can just walk up to a town and a dragon is attacking and the NPCs are trying to fight it and they are running away and an NPC might die.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's
genuinely, I've had situations where, and I know part of this is interacting with mods and things, but I've been walking down the street and a dragon turns up and just burns 2 farmers to death. And I go, oh, I guess those farmers are dead now. And every time I come back to town, there's a couple of corpses of farmers. And I go, I guess that happened. I guess that's
I
the
mean,
world we live in.
and yeah, the world moves on without you, but also people don't bury their dead. you know.
That is the thing I have noticed, and again, like I play the game so incredibly modded now that I can barely remember what's vanilla and what isn't. But like, occasion there's an interaction that NPCs have with dead bodies where they go up and they're like, "What a shame,"
Yeah.
and then they just leave the body there, and then you'll come back next time and they'll be the same person going, "What a shame,"
What a shame.
and walking away, and you go, "Yeah, yeah, anyone gonna clean this up?"
It was a shame last time, Derek.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
It's been a shame for literal weeks.
Yeah, and it's one of those games that I think, the longer you spend in that world on the same save file, and the more influence you've had over it, the more it starts to kind of crack at the seams a bit, break at the seams, and starts to struggle under its own weight.
I think that's always been an
But
issue with Bethesda games. I think, like, I remember playing Oblivion, and the longer you played, the more that you'd find like people with their legs sticking out of the stairs or things like that. I think that what sets Skyrim apart, and I think that what's made it last so long, is its modding community and how it's sort of gone kind of dwarf fortressy in that anything you can think of that might work with this world, any system that you can think of that might work with this world, someone is working on making or has already made. So you go, oh God, isn't it weird how over time no one buries their dead? And I guarantee you 2 weeks later, there'll be a bury your dead mod or something.
Yep.
Or like, there people, graphically, the game has been improved so much by modders in the recent years. Like there's mods for like, things that we take for granted in modern day video games now. There's grass that bends when you walk over it. And you think like any modern day game you play now, that's a thing. But it wasn't a thing when Skyrim came out. And I think what's really impressive is that the core of it is so well designed, and was so ahead of its time when it was made, that the stuff that people keep bolting onto it just makes it feel like it's how you remember it. This is modern Skyrim. This is a modern game.
No one's ripping out the guts. No one's changing the core architecture, but it's getting a little bit of a remodel, a bit of a redressing, a bit of a redesign. A fresh coat of paint, maybe an extension here and there, more rooms at the back. Knock through a wall, but still, same, that sort of stuff. And I think like anyone who played Skyrim, I sigh and I roll my eyes now because it's 2022 and we're still talking about Skyrim. And we made jokes about how people were still re-releasing and replaying Skyrim back in like 2014, 3 years later. And we joke when Amazon Alexa lets you play Skyrim, and we roll our eyes when fucking Todd Coward or God Howard, however you look at him, walks on stage and says how they're re-releasing Skyrim Special Edition, even though they just re-released Skyrim, Dragonborn, I don't know, Pants Edition or something. And we get tired of the complete, like, putting the spotlight back on this thing 11 years later. But of all the games, it kind of should be this one, I guess. Like,
Well,
it's
the funny thing is that the way that Bethesda have treated this property in recent years is almost antithetical to what is good about it. Like the reason that Skyrim has such longevity is that it is basically owned by the fans now. The install of Skyrim that I had on my computer is about 400 gigabytes big, and less than a quarter of that, maybe less than an eighth of that, is stock Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this, and every time they update the game, every time they release it in a new way, that breaks all of the mods, right? All the modders have to like freak out and update all their mods and everything. And when it's released on new platforms where they can't use mods, and people go, well, that's not what this is anymore. This is a platform for other people's creativity. I think that Bethesda, I get the impression that Bethesda don't really understand what it is that sells Skyrim. It's not being able to play it on your fridge. It's being able to play your version of Skyrim that's exactly how you want it to be. And they're planning on coming out with Elder Scrolls 6 at some point. They've done the sort of vague announcement of that view of the mountains at E3 a couple of years ago. I do wonder how you can follow something like Skyrim. I don't know. I think that Skyrim in itself is not a game. It's a platform, and it is whatever people want it to be now. And Elder Scrolls 6, I don't know. Do you focus as Bethesda? Do you focus on a good enough game but an incredibly great modding API, hoping that lightning will strike again, or do you just assume it's not going to happen again and try and make the best sort of core story that you can?
I mean, do you think Skyrim came out with a good modding community and API in mind, or do you think that kind of got evolved over time, where the modders were forced to work with a shit system? Because do you remember when they tried to monetize mods in Skyrim?
Yeah.
Like, they came up with their own shop, and they
Yeah.
tried to come up with their own
Another
integration into
core
console
misunderstanding
systems.
of why people buy these games.
And it definitely underlines the fact that Bethesda definitely, like, they made this platform, but they definitely they didn't release it with the mindset of a platform. They released it with the mindset of a AAA best-selling game of the year RPG adventure that they were gonna market through the fucking roof, use it to fund their their live service Fallout game in case it failed. And
But you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So do you think it's going to affect their thinking for the next one?
I don't know. I don't, because
If you were Todd Bethesda, if you were up there and you were giving the E3 speech and you were going, it just works. Would you say it just works because we're expecting modders to love it, or would you say it just works and if you want to mod it, maybe down the line?
I mean, if it were me, I'm a consumer. I'm going to get up on stage and I'm going to tell the modders that here's the code, day one, have it, free, just have fun.
Make all the titty mods you want. I want to see 12 different titties before the end of the day.
A bunch of unused assets in their Dropbox. There they go. Do what you like for your boots.
Yeah. I mean, that would be interesting to release the game with modding so much in mind that you're like, however much time we put into making the game great, there's also going to be a whole division that makes this game a big just thing of clay, and you can just mold it to whatever you want it to be.
But you also have to think about, well, then is that excluding the console market? Because that's an important conversation to have when you are releasing these games.
Yeah.
Are you being fair to all your consumers if you basically tell PC modders that they're getting the best deal? Because then Sony and Xbox basically shove a sword up your ass and say, how dare you tell players to go onto PC. Xbox aren't really so worried, I guess. It's Microsoft, but certainly Sony.
We'll see. I wonder if they're having been bought by Microsoft might sway them to the.
I mean, I guess that's just it. Yeah, as well as if they say modding's super easy when you buy this game on the Xbox Store or the Xbox, the Windows Store on PC, then they win. Like that's absolutely their kind of like ball to play, and Sony is just gonna have to. I mean, Sony is doing just fine. Everyone keeps saying like, when a bunch of stuff happens in the gaming news, they're like, "Oh, but what about Sony? Aren't they doing badly?" Sony is still the financial leader in the console markets, and they're doing just fine.
Yeah.
They make so much more money than Microsoft. People don't realize,
and they're so much more restrictive on modding than Xbox is anyway. So if they're upset by that, well, it's their own fucking fault. We can move on. I just want to say, we talked about the Forgotten City, the game that came from a Skyrim mod. So I have now played that Skyrim mod.
How was it?
I played it through. It is very interesting how both similar and different those two things are.
Sure.
Because the main core difference is what you expect from the game. When you arrive in Forgotten City, the game, the total game, you're like, this is a puzzle game where I arrive and I will acquire items that will help me with my journey, and I'll go through. You arrive in the Forgotten City in Skyrim and you arrive with a giant bow and arrow on your back and 3 swords in your pockets and a bunch of healing potions and things like that. And the game is like, don't kill anyone. And you're like, yeah, but
but I am very good at killing people.
Your first failure in the Forgotten City game is almost certainly like, fucking up a conversation tree or something like that. Your first failure in the Skyrim version is almost certainly stabbing someone.
Just dragon breathing everyone into a new timeline.
That being said, I think my first failure was stealing something because I was playing a rogue up until that point, and I walked into a room and no one was in it, and there was some money on the side, and I was like, "I'll take that." Nope, not good.
I mean, that is also a failure in Forgotten City anyway.
Exactly,
so,
yeah. But it's just you come at it with a very different expectation when you're in the middle of another game that's nothing like that.
Yeah, understandable.
Cool.
Jamie, it's the 2022 Bethesda investors meeting, and Todd Coward walks up to you and says, Jamie, we really love how you've been supporting the Skyrim community since we released the game back in November, the 11th of November 2011, when the game just worked. But we do feel that your services are now they're now complete because we're going to be moving on to Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 9000. But before you go, buddy, just if you just want to say one last thing about Skyrim, if you just want to summarize all your thoughts on that game in a single line, what would you say?
This game will be whatever you want it to be, and that's its secret.
And he pulls out a bow and arrow and hits you in the head, and that little like archery level up noise happens as he hits you in the head. Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Like
and and someone walks up to your body. What a shame.
I spaz out because of the physics.
Yeah.
All right. Before we move on, you've been a guardian. Are we even guardians anymore? You are.
Without the light, was I playing a guardian anymore? Destiny 2. I was playing some more Destiny 2. I got a friend from work who's been playing Destiny 2,
You
and
got
I
other
was
friends?
we'll talk about this off the podcast if you don't mind.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Sorry. It's just let's move on. And it made me want to play Destiny 2, kind of. So I was like, all right, it's free to play. It's on Steam. I got mad at it last time because it migrated the wrong account, so I lost all my DLCs. But now the old DLCs don't matter because they just moved on. So playing Destiny 2 now is a very strange experience because there's not all of Destiny 2. There's half of Destiny 2, and it's just the relevant half. They just got rid of the irrelevant old stuff. Right. So the old expansions aren't playable, the old campaigns aren't there. So you just jump in and a bunch of stuff has happened, and all these NPCs basically treat you like you've just woken up in the middle of all the events, and they all talk about stuff like you don't know it. So they're all talking about Nathan Fillion's character, and they're all like, "Oh man, what a great guy he was." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What? Why are you? What the fuck?" Um, it's a weird experience, but the fact is, the strength of Destiny 2 is it's a very forgiving kind of like power fantasy shooter game that is quite fun to just point and click with a bunch of other people. You basically use a bunch of near Overwatch like kind of shooty powerful abilities, but the difference being is when you use an ability in this game, you also watch like a KO count go up by like the dozens or something every second, and that's very satisfying to watch a number go up. It's fun. I'm going to keep playing it.
If I had a vague interest in it, because I did enjoy the times I played it before, would you recommend I play it?
It's free to play, so nothing lost but time. And I think there is fun in there. I've actually really enjoyed going in and doing my little dailies, doing the little Halloween event. I've enjoyed just kind of using the weapons. Like it feels good. It's mechanically a very competent game.
Okay. Well, maybe
It's
I'll hop
doing
in with you at some point. We can be guardians together.
Guardians. Yeah. It wouldn't be still around if it didn't have a strength, and it it has strengths.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we're going to move on to the next section, which is the movie section. Jonas, you're up first. What are you doing for the movies section?
Well, Jamie, as you know, yesterday it was Halloween. So what did I do? I watched Halloween. No, not the 2018 um like fifth or sixth or seventh movie in the Halloween series. No, I went back to the beginning. Halloween 1978's version, baby. If you didn't know that Halloween 1978 contains murder, violence, sex, and stalking, I'm telling you now that it contains murder, violence, sex, and stalking. Halloween, the original, the 44-year-old classic film that made us all fall in love with Michael Myers, the actor, and and the simplicity of a onesie and a mask for our next spooky Halloween costume. This film opens with a 15-year-old girl getting murdered in her home, brutally stabbed to death by a stalker in a mask. Only for the shocking plot twist that the killer was actually her 6-year-old brother, Michael Myers. The film then fast forwards 15 years later. Michael has escaped his prison and returns to his hometown, where he proceeds to stalk and target 3 teenage girls on Halloween night. Now, this is not only my first time watching the original Halloween, it was also my first time watching young Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis plays Laurie, the kind of lead protagonist of this movie, one of the 3 targets of Halloween's killer. It's a simple film in a lot of ways, but that doesn't hold it back from being entertaining. Even 44 years later, I found it, I don't know, easy to watch, I guess. And I had fun the whole way through. I think it hardly holds up as scary when you can kind of see the actors flopping around when a knife is barely touching them. But it's kind of fun to try and buy into the thrill of it and try and appreciate how it wants to be depicted, how it wanted to be depicted at its time. This is a slow burn horror with most of the conflict and sort of overt violence taking place in the final third of the movie. But leading up to that is a lot of fun moments where they play around with setting and secondary characters. The girls spend all day making various plans with each other, talking about their babysitting duties or their boyfriends or their plans at school the next day. There's this secondary plot in which the doctor that studied Michael for the last 15 years runs around town trying to convince people and police that evil is on the loose. Michael himself just spends the daytime hours creepily standing or driving around the other characters while they go about their day for no discernible reason. It's fun, it's silly, with no knowledge of how the events of Halloween actually play out. It's almost thrilling. There are certainly elements of this film that have aged poorly. Classic teenage victims in a horror film, the characters all repeatedly make the worst possible decisions repeatedly throughout the film. Awful breakdowns in communication and near comical timing of when to look out the window result in near slapstick murder sequences, sometimes making Michael feel less like a terrifying killer and more like a poor hitman player who just happened to dodge NPC line of sight when it mattered. Though the simple design of Michael, through the simple design of Michael, the iconic musical score of Halloween, and the singular mission statement of this film, they all blend together in a way that really holds up today. Maybe next year I'll watch Halloween too. Jamie, have you seen Halloween or any of the Halloween movies?
I have not. No, no, they're not. They're not really the kind of things that I go for usually. What made you? What made you want to go back and dip into this well of classic horror?
Let me tell you the story.
Is it a spooky story?
No, I on Monday, Monday morning, I realized that I hadn't watched a film for this podcast.
Okay.
So I went on Netflix and I went on Amazon Prime and I went on Disney Plus and all these things. I scanned around for something I could try and watch. There was a film on the front of Netflix called The School for Good and Evil. It's quite long. It's over 2 hours long, but it was like a brand new film, and it was clearly like a light-hearted witch adventure film or something.
Right. I think I might have seen it advertised. Yeah.
I started watching it, and I got 29 minutes in before I could take no more.
Okay.
So then I realized that I would need a concertedly shorter. I had wasted 30 minutes basically on this product. I needed to watch something else. I went to Amazon Prime and I just saw Halloween there. I just saw it staring at me. And I just thought, I hear people talk about Halloween and this Michael Myers character, and I don't know anything about why he's scary or what he does or how he kills people. And I see it has Jamie Lee Curtis in it, who, having just watched Everything Everywhere All at Once this year, I'm now obviously familiar with her in her current stage, but I wanted to know her origin, her history. And all of that just meant like, all right, it's an hour and a half. It's on Amazon. I think it cost me freaking like £3 to buy or something, or rent. I just went for it, and I just thought this way I've checked it off like the watch list, right? I've seen a classic.
Yeah, it's nice to check off those like cultural touchstones. I've got a poster somewhere in the house of like the 100 best films on IMDb at whatever point the poster was printed, and you can like scratch off the films when you've watched them. And my plan was to like not scratch off anything I'd seen before the poster, just scratch them off as I watched them after the poster. So I'd rewatch some classics, or I'd watch some classics I hadn't seen, but it's quite hard to get through them when there's a lot of other new things that you want to watch. And it's quite nice to watch something and be like, this is like a cultural thing. I can now say I've seen this.
Yeah, and
It-
it has the main thing about Halloween is it has that like I was about to make what I think the noise sounds like. I actually can't hear it in my head right now. But Halloween has this like very iconic kind of scoring, like
Yeah.
this like little kind of musical motif, and it was nice just to be like, oh shit, this is what it's from. Okay,
yeah,
you
it's
know,
nice to learn. It's nice to you talked about it not aging well, like those cliches come from films like this, right? And so it's nice to sort
yeah,
of be like, oh yeah, this wasn't cliched when it came out.
yeah, no,
I
no, no,
mean,
and like
Halloween
obviously,
kind
yeah,
of was still, but yeah.
I sit there and and I cringe a little bit for the characters and the writing, but also it's so forgivable, right?
Mm,
Everything in that film I completely just forgive in a moment because it's of its time,
mm,
and I'm just totally willing to kind of like immerse myself in the 1970s, or try and strip back everything I know and predict about kind of modern films and just enjoy this journey. And yeah, it was all right. If you haven't seen Halloween and you're like, you know, oh, maybe I might. It's not a bad idea.
it's
I enjoyed myself.
it's not the film you reviewed, but what was wrong with The School of Good and Evil?
It it was just so hammy and overacted, and I don't know. What's the word? Like I can't think of the word I want to use at the moment, but it was just grotesque.
Grotesque's a good
Um,
word. I like that.
it was just grotesque, yeah. And I'm sure it's maybe because I'm aggressively the wrong audience, but I watched it with an open mind. I could tell instantly that this is aimed at teenage girls, right?
Mm,
Like it just is. And
yeah.
I tried to just watch it with an open mind anyway.
Imagine as if you were a teenage girl.
I tried to be the teenage girl that I was always destined to be, and I fucking hated it. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was just boring, and it was just like spending so much time setting up such a simple concept. Um, I kind of dreaded trying to find good things to say about it, like as I was watching the first 30 minutes. Um, yeah, just
Well, maybe it
move
gets
on.
better towards the end. I think you should stick with it.
If it comes up as a random,
Oh God, because it's
we
on
can get back
Netflix.
into it.
It might
It's on
come up on
Netflix.
the random. Okay, all
Yeah.
right. You're hanging out with your gal pals. You don't know yet that you're being stalked by Michael Myers. You're just discussing what you're up to on the weekend, and what plans you have. And one of them says they want to watch a film, and then looks at you and says, "Oh, you saw that Halloween film, right? What's it about? What's it like? Can you sum it up in a sentence?"
Yeah. Timeless, but not for the right reasons.
And then your friend goes, "Oh, and then they're dead. The head
No.
cut off.
But let's be clear about this. The knife hits their neck, clearly blunt and doesn't do anything, and then it bounces off them, and then half a second later we cut to a clearly fake head flying through the sky, and
Yeah,
that like it's that kind of hammy.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I would watch that. All right, we're moving on to my movie of the month, a movie that came out very recently. We've swapped. I'm doing the recent ones now. And I am talking about the Banshees of Inisherin, or Inisherin? The Banshees of Inisherin. I think that's it. Well, we'll
Ed
see.
Sheeran.
We'll see when I get complaints. So it's a film by Martin McDonagh, who was the director of In Bruges, and he teams up once more with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, the two stars of In Bruges, for a absolutely pitch black comedy. It's set on the island of Inisherin, which is off the coast of Ireland. And it features Porrick, played by Colin Farrell, who goes to visit his friend Colm, played by Gleeson, and invites him down to the pub. And when Colm refuses to acknowledge him, he gets confused and starts asking others on the island if they know what's wrong. It turns out that Colm no longer wants to be friends with him. Not for anything he's done, but just because he's decided he wants to end the friendship. The Banshees of Inisherin is a tale about life in a small community. It's both about how living around everyone you've ever known for your entire life can be at once supportive and suffocating. And it's about how anger and grief can, without perspective and time for personal disagreements, can become all encompassing obsessions. Set against the backdrop of the Irish Civil War, Banshees does an incredible job of looking at the way that small shocks and changes can breed resentment and heartbreak in these tight communities. The small vignettes of life on the island explore the limits of ambition when change is impossible, and the limits of compassion in the face of an unyielding sadness. And they are at once reflections of the many things that perpetuate the war on the mainland across the way, and deeply personal to the characters experiencing them. At its heart, the film explores what compassion means and what people think it means, often those two not being the same thing. Are we truly a nice person if we are warm and friendly to everyone in the pub, but don't stand up to the father who beats his son? Does being nice trump achieving your lifetime's ambitions, or is that ignoring what the point of life is in the first place? The film is carried by incredible performances of its very talented cast. Farrell and Gleeson are standout, but so are Kerry Condon, who plays Porrick's brother, who's able to express the frustration she feels as she hits the walls of what's possible on the island, and Barry Keoghan, who plays a boy with learning difficulties who struggles to be accepted in the community. The bleak landscapes with empty fields and grey skies and the almost complete lack of diegetic sound helps to bring these performances right into focus. This is a film about people and relationships, and it makes sure you can't escape this as they can't. This film is very funny, finding the absurdity and the mundanity of these human interactions. Porrick's puppy-like loyalty and obsession with niceness is delightfully funny, right up until it isn't. And as the film goes on, it descends into a bleak, quiet misery. It is heartbreaking and compelling, and I could not have loved it more. Jonas, have you seen anything about this film?
So, I'll be honest. I thought this film was something to do with a girl who lives in a swamp and people think she's a witch
What?
or something. I had this mixed up with an entirely different film that's come out recently. And I don't
Well,
remember the name of the film.
good thing I'm here to review the actual film.
No, I think when Mary and I went to the cinema, we would just see this trailer for this film over and over again. And then people just started talking about this film, and because it had the name Banshee in it, I assumed it had something to do with this film with this woman who gets called a witch who
Okay.
lives in a swamp.
Well, what do you think about the actual film, The Banshees of Inisherin?
Okay, so I haven't seen In Bruges. So part of that, like, In Bruges is a film that I know I would enjoy seeing. It's a film I want to see, but I just never do see it. And in that sense, I don't know, something about it is like I would want to watch In Bruges, and then watching In Bruges would probably make me excited for this.
Mm.
And I don't know how I really feel about this film yet. I don't have a lot of
You're
love for the
too
actors, but
busy thinking about a woman in a swamp.
they're swamp women. They're just on my mind. But no, I mean, it sounds like you wholeheartedly enjoyed and would recommend this film.
I mean, genuinely, it was an experience. It's so it's at once quite sort of like calm and slow and an incredibly intense experience. Like I saw it with Laura and a couple of her friends, and all of us came out being like, "Fuck, man, that's a film." Like all of us were like, "That's a really funny film. Why do we all feel so sad?"
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Is it a film that trying to think about this. Is it sort of an exploration about this like this personal relationship between these two people and very much sort of an exploration of their characters and where their character personalities clearly do and don't
Not not
interact well?
Not really. It like they're quite broadly drawn characters, and I think it's more an exploration of sort of like what causes communities to decay, right? Like there's an important reason why it's set to the backdrop of the Irish Civil War, and it's kind of timeless in that it's clearly set somewhere around the 20s, but it's sometimes people look a bit more modern, and sometimes they're riding horse and carts and things, and it's trying to sort of explore what causes people who love each other or who are in like close knit communities to fall out, right? The Irish Civil War was about people who lived next door to each other killing each other over religion or other things like that. And this film basically it takes people who, in many ways, the majority of the people are quite sympathetic through and through, just for very different reasons, and at the same time, incredibly unsympathetic in the way that they handle certain things. I think that realistically, no one changes throughout the whole film. Everyone is the same as they were at the beginning.
Mm.
It's just the way that they that these sort of complicated relationships break down. I don't want to spoil too much of what happens, but the these the these the problems that they have with each other, like the reason that Colm chooses to end this friendship is both absurd and like totally relatable at the same time. And I think that's what it's trying to get at. This guy, he wants to make something of himself, and he feels like he can't spend all of his time just talking to this one guy and wasting his time away. But at the same time, this guy has done nothing wrong. He does not deserve his main friendship on this tiny island to be ended, right? And it explores these sort of these situations where no one's right, and that can
Mm.
cause just really horrible consequences that can't be repaired. And at the same time, sort of the limits of people's, you know like what people's relationships really mean, right? Like, does being a father mean that you are automatically compassionate to your son, or does being a policeman automatically mean that you are a noble person? Does being best friends, mean that you are destined to be friends forever, or is that more of an obligation than a benefit, right? It's very interesting, and it explores a lot of sort of very human things through I think the setting of having it on this tiny island basically allows it to be a microscope on these sort of really human things.
Okay, okay, cool. Well, it's certainly now that I know it's not the film that I thought it was, it sort of just has opened a space in my mind where I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. How
Yeah.
amazing! Um, realistically, it's a film that I'm probably not going to go see in the cinema, but I think it's the kind of film that I'm going to try and keep my eyes open for maybe just an opportunity to put it on
I
one
think
day while I'm here.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a cinema film. It is beautiful, and it has, and the I think the lack of sound is almost more prominent in a big proper sound system. But it's such a character piece. You could watch it on your TV at home; it'd be fine.
Cool. I think aware of the time and also sort of not too sure I need to know much more about this. I'm curious and I like what I've heard so far. So James, you you come into the local pub and you see me, your friend, sat at the bar, and when you attempt to talk to me, I ignore you and I brush you off and
Oh,
I don't acknowledge you at all. And you, in your frustrations, you attempt to seek out answers. Why is Jonas shirking me like? Why is Jonas shirking me like this? You say to everyone in that exact cadence. And one
but
person
in an
reveals to
Irish
you,
accent.
there's one thing you can do to repair that friendship, oh laddie boy. You got to give Jonas a one sentence review of Banshees of Inisherin. That'll solve everything. Um, and
I thought it was all right. I thought it was all right.
it's just yeah, what do you say?
I say an absolutely stunning character piece that's well worth experiencing. Oh, I didn't do the content warnings at the beginning. Self-harm and suicide, quite explicit self-harm and suicide. It's dark.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on to our Netflix randomizer for this month. And last month we were given the film Amateur, which is a short. It's not a short film; it's a regular film about a boy who is a basketball sort of prodigy, but he has dyscalculia, and he gets picked up by a school team to play, and tries to sort of create a career out of being a basketballer whilst also having problems with numbers. Off the bat, what do you think, Jonas? What was your gut feeling?
Like certainly not awful, not a waste of my time. Like I didn't find that I was like disappointed with it. I think you know, I think it's very averagely entertaining. I don't feel like it taught me. I don't feel like it showed, when you watch these kind of these documentaries and things like that, or retellings of like quite, spectacular or special stories about people who, sort of did the impossible or the exceptional, or suffered and so and rose through strife and things like that. You expect to maybe hear about something maybe just a little bit more I like overtly spectacular. Amateur is I don't know. It's a nice story. There's like, this boy definitely kind of goes through an adventure that is unique to him, and it's certainly like I think it is a story. It's a story kind of worth telling. It's just maybe not a story worth turning into a 1.5 hour Netflix special.
It struck me as a significantly more American problem that it was dealing with. I think that
Hmm.
like you, I thought it was, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say that it's a film that I would go, if you're into sports films, this is the one to see, kind of thing. It was competently made. The time passed quite nicely. I enjoyed the characters, even if no one was like a particular standout talent in it. I think that it is about a problem that is uniquely American, right? This idea that, you know, kids can't get paid to play sport, but it's a multi-million-dollar industry. And so there's this sort of exploitation at the lower end, and it's sort of linked with poverty and all this kind of stuff. And they sort of talk about how in Europe, like that's the beautiful world of Europe where they don't have these issues. It's like, well, we live in that world, right, where you can pay a kid to play football, so it's just not a thing in the UK. So our attachment
Yeah.
with it is sort of being like, yeah, fine.
I mean,
Like,
like So the payment stuff only really, I think, only really kind of starts to become like a talking point in the last third of this,
Mm.
right? Like the first hour of this is about a young boy, a 14-year-old boy, so talented at basketball that he basically gets brought into a team of like 16, 17, 18, and a 24-year-old, like adults, near adults as far as he's concerned. He's the odd one out. He does it out of desperation to help his parents out. His dad is constantly forcing him down this kind of avenue where, his dad wants him to be a spotlight athlete, basically.
Mm.
Whereas the boy kind of, just kind of wants to be himself. He just wants to be part of a team. He just wants to belong to this
Yeah.
team and this friendship group.
But there is still an element with him, like with his dad. He's sort of slightly mentally ill because he's been hit in the head so much from playing American football, and there is this sort of element to it, which is that like, the American sports system and the American healthcare system is quite exploitative, and that people
Mm.
on the bottom end struggle to sort of move out because of the mechanisms that work against them. And I'm not saying that poverty isn't a thing in the UK. It absolutely is, right? I'm not saying that these aren't problems that exist in Europe, but the problems that they deal with are so uniquely American that it feels a bit less relatable to the outside, I guess. What I really did like that they did well was how they handled the dyscalculia thing. How every time he looks at numbers, it's constantly changing.
That was like that is the kind of thing where I've never seen a character have dyscalculia like overtly in a piece of media.
Hmm.
But if they ever do, that's how I would like to see it
It's really good,
represented.
right?
You instantly understand this character's struggle. Like you understand how it affects him. You understand why it doesn't work for him. A big one for me is people explain dyslexia to me, but I can't visualize dyslexia. The letters appear in the right order to me. But if someone showed me footage of, these letters kind of swapping places and changing shape and whatever, I'd have a better grasp of it. And I think Dyscalculia did that really well.
And I
Sorry,
think,
Amateur did that really well for Dyscalculia.
and I think as well, like, not just visually displaying it, which who knows if that's actually how it seems, but it got the idea across really well.
Mm.
But also how they really well introduced the problems that would cause, right? Like, because he can't read the time, he's not sure what score it is or how long he has left on a shot or these kind of things. And there were lovely little moments where, as the team got to know him better, like there's one point where he looks up and he sort of squints at the scoreboard, and his teammate just leans over and goes, "We're down by 1 point." And then they just
Yeah.
move on. And I was like, and it really felt like it came from the point of view of someone who understood that condition and how it would affect the whole of your life, and built characters who understood that. I thought that was the thing they did the absolute best out of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then everything else to me was very like, it was very middle of the road.
Mm.
It's he's a good basketballer, and the system is bad, but he is good.
The
And
ending was the cheesiest fucking thing. Where he's just like,
and
I'm going to Latvia to play basketball, and we'll be able to pay for your medical bills, Dad. Okay.
hey, I found the solution to all of America's corruption. Contracts with Europe's.
Yeah. The solution to this problem is signing a teenage boy to a contract
Emigrate.
that sends him to a foreign land and binds him to a brand for the rest of his life.
Emigrate and exploit the child elsewhere. Yeah, honestly, it taught me a bit about this problem that I just kind of, I wasn't aware of it, maybe because I didn't care, but whatever. It's otherwise a competent portrayal of like a coming of age story as well. He
Yeah.
has to he has to get to grips with these other people, and he has to kind of learn to understand them, and they have to learn to understand him.
Do you think
And
the
it,
kid was cast because of his ability of basketball over his ability to act?
I well, let's just start by saying he's fine as an actor. He's just fine.
Yeah.
he's quite an expressionless 14-year-old boy throughout most of the film. Like when people are talking to him seriously.
I felt the scene where he explains the contract he has to go to Europe
Oh,
was particularly dreadful.
he's just reading this. He's just reading the teleprompter. Like
he looks like the actor playing his mum is holding up the lines on the other side of the camera.
Yo, mom, it's gonna be fine. So listen, I can sign contracts outside of the US and they'll pay me now up front to sign on with their brand for 3 years. And it's just like, oh god, whatever.
Yeah, it was pretty rubbish.
Yeah, and you know, they have this whole thing about him having a social media following and
Oh god, all of his social media videos were so bad.
Is this a real person? That was
No,
one thing I was
it's
struggling to
not a real
find out.
person. No,
It's just a film.
it's just a film.
Okay, I thought it was like a retelling of like a real story. So.
It did have that kind of feel, but then it got a bit sort of schmaltzy as it went along. But yeah. All right. Well, enough of this shit. My printer is still out of action, and this week so is my Laura. So we have no automated way of selecting our film. So we're going to go back to the old Dark Lord days. So anyone in chat, Jonas is going to come up with an 8-letter word. And then in chat, the first person to say a letter from that word, that's the movie that we will be watching.
Okay, now, Jamie.
Yeah.
You told everyone the system there, but I want to pick a different.
Change it. Okay.
But I want a different system.
Okay. All right. Everybody, ignore what I just said. Listen to Jonas.
Listen, all right. We got people in chat. They need to type something fast. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm learning Japanese at the moment. Someone give us a number 1 to 8, but type the Japanese for it.
What the fuck?
Yeah, just type 1 to 8 in Japanese.
Okay, the first person to type a Japanese number in Japanese, Hachi. Oh, there we go.
Hachi.
What's
That's
that? 8. Oh, there we go. Okay.
It's revision for me, and it's a system, all right?
Okay, well, you're gonna love this.
What? Oh, no.
All right, so
is it School for Good and Evil?
No, it is. So we could have had Crazy Love, also known as L'amour est un chien de l'enfer.
Okay.
We could have had Little Singham Samunda Ka Sikanda.
I heard the word salmon in there.
We could have had Hell on the Border. We could have had The Trick. We could have had Cheveranze, a movie in reverse. We could have had Mascots. We could have had Michael Jackson's This Is It. But instead, we have our old friend. It's another Tom Segura stand-up. It's Tom Segura Mostly Stories.
Oh, come on.
He's back again. It's Tom Segura.
Come on. Spell it for me.
Tom.
Oh, I found him. Tom Segura what?
Mostly Stories.
I don't want to watch Tom Segura again.
Was he the ball
of all
guy?
the things on Netflix?
Was, yeah. So there we go. It's another Tom Segura. We're going to become Tom Segura scholars. We're going to have seen all of his stand-up by the end of this system. I have no idea why after the first year of doing this, it was all Bollywood, and now it's all stand-up. I don't know what's happened. I don't know how that's shifted. But there we go. We got another Tom Segura thing.
Don't want to see more of this man.
Was Ball Hog this year?
I think it was.
So we're gonna have during the awards 2 separate Tom Segura things to decide.
And he's gonna win them both. He'll be the best and the worst.
Well, he has the possibility to do so. If I remember rightly, Ball Hog wasn't that bad.
It was punching down a lot, I think, and That's
Oh
why I
no,
didn't like
Bullhog.
it.
Oh no, actually, sorry. I was thinking of the Mexican guy. Tom Segura isn't that, is he?
No, Tom Segura is like an angry American. Oh no, Bullhog was. Wait, where is it?
Bullhog.
Random Netflix. Smolensk, Kevin Hart, Serge, Virdas, Friends with Money, Thomas Tankian, Den Stor Badadag, Justine, Organized Isla, Stree, Layla, Fractured Reality High, Carlos Balata. God, it feels really recent, but it was 2020.
Oh shit. Okay, well there we go. I was wrong. I still consider this the stand-up era. Smooth Pikachu says in chat, first the Bollywood era, now the stand-up era. What will be next? Tell us in chat, or if you're listening to the audio version, tweet at me what you want the next era of randomizer to be. All right. Well, I don't really remember Ballhog, but maybe it will all come flooding back to me when I watch Mostly Stories. It is rated higher than Ballhog, so there we go.
So there we go.
The one review on Ballhog is definitely could have been better. The writing was super lazy, straightforward, and predictable.
What's weird about this on IMDb is that it looks like it has a cast.
Oh yeah.
So
Gabriel G. Alvarez, Elijah Bowman, Brandon Brown.
is this sketches? Do you think this is?
Well, what's the description? The bearded, bawdy, and comically bitter Tom Segura gets real about body piercings, the Area 51 of men's bodies, and the lie he told Mike Tyson. Yeah, it has like people listed as like homeless man and thug, factory worker, cafe couple.
Do you think they come on stage?
Did you know Tom Segura lost £264 for this role?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, he said he would fill all the seats in the theatre, but he didn't. Did you know this special was delayed filming for over 3 months due to Tom Segura not finding the perfect pair of high and tight jeans?
Well, that's just the sign of a man who is going to please.
Did you know Tom Segura is an avid supporter of scrum eating and the daily benefits it is for women's health?
Scrum eating. It sounds like a sex act, but I doubt it is.
In 1980, on June 20th, this special was named Best New Comedy in the World. Bert accepted this award as Tom was learning to walk. And then
Jamie,
the next bit of trivia is, hello Bert, hello Tom. I hope you guys see this.
Jamie,
Yeah.
I'm going back through our document notes for October 2020 when we watched or talked about like Bullhog, whatever.
Right.
There's just the notes we wrote were so different because you've just written in red, Jonas, you fucked up the title. Go and edit in your retake. Just Jonas, find re-recording of game name. You've written at the end of my review.
No, I wouldn't have written that. I think you wrote it to yourself.
Jonas, you fucked up the title. It sounds like a teacher be giving like angry notes to their student.
I wouldn't have written that. I wouldn't have written that. That would have been you writing it when you were editing it, right?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't like my tone.
All right. Well, anyway, next month we'll come back and we'll tell you all about our latest exploration in Tom Segura. Maybe it will all come flooding back and we'll remember Tom Segura, or maybe we won't. Maybe I'll watch like a little bit of Ballhog just to remind myself of what it's like. Or maybe I won't. I don't know. Their stand-up specials are only like an hour anyway, so I've got the time. All right. Thank you.
Good thing about recording this on the 1st of November is that we definitely have a whole month until the next podcast.
We have 5 weeks till the next
that's
podcast.
So much time.
I know.
You can achieve so much in 5 weeks.
I know. And
I can't wait for you to talk about how you played Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
Well, next weekend I've had all my plans cancelled, so I can play Overwatch all weekend. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you're watching live here on twitch.tv, we love you. You can catch the audio versions of this podcast by searching the Bunyip Review in all good podcasting things or finding us on Twitter at the Bunyip Review. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, you can watch us live on the first Tuesday of every month, assuming that we actually stream on the first Tuesday of every month, because sometimes things come up. At twitch.tv/the Bunyip Man, or if that things change, go to Twitter at the Bunyip Review to find out any kind of changes in the schedule or anything like that. If you either way, could you post a review on whatever kind of podcast service you use? It really helps let people know what we do. It's really lovely of you, and it would make our days. Yeah, Jonas, do you have anything you want to recommend, or have I missed any like duties here?
I recommend everyone. I recommend a good night's sleep.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know. I've definitely been doing a lot. But nothing comes to mind.
Nothing I would recommend.
Nothing I wouldn't recommend anything that I do.
Well, I listened to a new podcast, not a new podcast actually, it's quite an old podcast called Finding Drago. It's also called Finding Desperado. They basically do two series in the same feed. This is two guys who basically this Finding Drago series is that they do a movie podcast, and during their movie podcast they found out about a book called Drago on Mountains, which is about what happens to Ivan Drago, the Russian boxer, after the events of Rocky IV. And the book is by a mysterious author called Todd Noy. And the book is new and signed by Todd Noy, the copy that they get a hold of. And yet Todd Noy disappeared in the 1980s. And so they're trying to work out who Todd Noy is, where this book comes from. The book is basically a strange fan fiction, and like what the fuck has happened to him. And it's a comedy sort of true crime thing. It is real. They really did try and find the person who wrote this book, but it is a matter of so little consequence that it has a nice, quite refreshing, funny tone to it. And because it's not a real murder, and because it doesn't actually matter as a mystery, they do actually find the answer, which is something that you very rarely get in actual true crime podcasts. And then Finding Desperado, they come up with a similar mystery about they find a Guinness World Record that doesn't make sense to them, and they attempt to hunt down the person who holds it. It's well worth watching. Well worth watching. Or listening. I mean, listening to. Oh, they also did a YouTube series with Auntie Donna called Finding Jesus, where they try and find the creator of the game Kanye Quest 3030.
I don't know if I started that or not.
It's really good. Really, really good.
Cool. No, I'll definitely put that on my to watch. I'll put Finding Jesus on my to watch list. That's for sure. Now, I was just staring at my calendar to figure out if I did anything that I want to talk about. I'm playing a lot more D&D these days. It's not something I need to recommend to people, but just I'm having a lot of fun with D&D. Just thought people might like to know that.
Oh, also, and this will go on forever and ever, but I will stop in a minute. If you follow my normal Twitter at the Bunyip Man, I have received a lot of Kickstarter board games recently, and some are really good. So I'm going to do some like short write-ups and like photos of the bits and stuff you get from them, because a lot of the games, the Kickstarter games, then go to retail afterwards, and I've had people ask me, you know, what's good, right? You're getting these games earlier than people normally get them. Are there any we should get? So check out my Twitter over the next couple of weeks, and I'm gonna do some little sort of Twitter length reviews kind of thing, or maybe if they need to be longer, maybe I'll do some stuff for my Ko-fi. Check that out if you want some board game recommends, because I'm not allowed to give them here, but once a year.
Yes, you've used up your contracted quota.
I cannot wait till January, where I can just bust out the fucking board games again.
Unleash it.
All right, that's it. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Good night.
Cool. That's it for the poddy. Thank you for watching, everybody. This is really good fun. It was a big long one this time. Hello, Steltec Mary, Koto, Laura. Hello, everybody. I'll check out the Story Break. Yeah, I stopped listening to them a while back after they did their whole Heaven Heist thing. I was a bit burnt out on it. But I will go back and I'll listen to it. Have you got anything streaming wise you want to chat about, Jonas, this week?
Yesterday I streamed World of Horror, the like procedural Japanese cultist horror game. It's very fun. It's not actually Japanese. It's just like styled. It's American, like it's Western developed, but it takes place in like a Japanese town. It's super cool. It's near. It just got an update as well, so it's almost like 1.0 version. Otherwise, I think I could do a stream on maybe Thursday or maybe on the weekend. I don't know what I would do yet. Bayonetta 3 will hopefully be in my hands soon. The new God of War comes out soon, but I'll be playing that on the PlayStation. I don't know.
Koto, you're an absolute filth. Oh, cool. Cool. Well, fair enough. If I can, I'll tune into some of them. I am streaming wise. I think we're probably back to Civ tomorrow, and then Thursday. I have only heard back from Luke weirdly, and not Beth, which is it's usually the other way around. So if it's only me and Luke, I might see if I can get people together to do a plate up because I know Luke likes plate up. And then we'll see if Maddie and Laura want to play. And if it's Luke, me, and Beth, or just me and Beth, then we'll be playing Sims Medieval again. So come tune in for that. But otherwise, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, you think?
Bye.
You fucking think so, huh?
So long.
All right, yeah. Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Mwah, 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 mwah.